Silly. I'll send some to bed, guys. Let's add to that.
Where's my water bottle go?
Check up on them.
It's his, it's just mine. You can't have mine.
You need one of those? Yeah, I'll take one.
Do you go to the airport meetings? The airport committee meeting? There's not one until next month, right?
Frank is no, I think there's one coming out in March.
Yeah, March 10th.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Frank was asking me to cover it. Damn, you're not gonna be back until March 10th?
They say it's working. Yeah. Yeah.
My wife just sent me one.
Said it wasn't.
No, it's not. What's wrong?
I got one too, but they said it was now.
Okay,
Yeah, Christina said it's back up.
okay,
Usually Donna will text us and tell us if it's up or not.
okay.
Still chilly over here. His wife is sick, so he was home with her.
Where did it go?
What it is. You know what it was? He was on the cruise, and she got sick. Dramatic entrance. All rise.
I'm ready. I think.
All right.
Unless you drop more papers on my desk.
I think we're pretty good.
Okay. You good with the invocation again?
Yes, sir.
I don't know, the pastors don't even respond to my emails anymore.
I'm good till someone tells me to stop praying there.
Okay. Good. Dave, we good? Right, we reconvene at 6:37 PM into open session to act as deemed appropriate in city council's discretion regarding A, consultation with legal counsel and possible action.
No action?
No action.
All right, Sandra, please note we have all of our council members in attendance except for Frank. He is not with us this evening. And if you would, please join me for the invocation, the pledge allegiance to the U.S. and the Texas flags.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to join together, Lord, in a community, in a setting that allows for open discussion and dialogue. Lord, we ask that you provide wisdom and guidance to our council this evening. Let them listen to the items in front of them, to think clearly about those action items, and to have open dialogue with community members, and to make the decisions that are best for our city. Lord, we ask that you just watch out for our communities and our neighborhoods and our individuals. Just take care of us, Lord, throughout the weekends and during cold seasons and flu season. Lord, anyone that has these issues that are impacting their lives, we just ask that you add special healing touch to their bodies. Take care of them, Lord, and keep us all protected. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
The U.S. flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right, citizen comments. In accordance with the Open Meetings Act, council is prohibited from acting or discussing other than factual responses to specific questions, any items not on the agenda. And I have Ms. Darcy DeVoe has signed up for citizen comments.
Is this on?
No.
Flip the clips down.
Testing.
Testing.
There we
Darcy DeVoe, 20223 Travis Drive, Unit 12, Lago Vista. Hi. I was going to ask, because you have a couple things, I know they're on the agenda, and I don't know exactly how this goes, but I want to have you table two of your things on your agenda tonight. One is the Green Center because of lack of ORRs compliance. And the last thing I received was, I have attached your ORR along with a copy of the PO request from Eric Blagy, however you pronounce that. Our IT department is still working on the emails. This means that someone didn't comply with my requests for ORRs. And this is some of what I've gotten. This is some. There's more. And some of this I just got, like yesterday or the day before, I think it was this much. I haven't had a chance to get through all of this. We haven't had a chance to get legal counsel involved in all this, because now we are. So we would like to table that, and we'd like to table the ORR, because there was nothing in the packet that said the prices of what it would be for the ORR. And I've also looked that up on the Texas State Code, and you can only charge after someone has had you print over 50 documents. And you didn't print anything. All this was sent to me in an email. Erin called me on the 27th. She said she would try to get me what she could as fast as she could. A few days later, Erin's, what's her name? Rebecca? Brittany texted or sent me an email, and I have that in here, stating that they were working on it. Then a day, or I think later, Sandra sent me something, which wasn't all of it either. It was maybe one or two. And when I first came in for the ORR, gentlemen, I came in on, actually Donna dropped it off because I work, I have a job. And so she dropped it off. It was on February 5th. I asked for everybody's emails. I asked for all texting. I asked for anything to do with that lot. Anything from anyone in the city. When I came in, Sandra said to me, this was 15 days later, Sandra said to me, and I will quote, because Sandra, you know what you said in front of two witnesses, "We don't have anything for you, Darcy. I don't know what you're talking about in this ORR. What are you discussing in this ORR?" And she pointed down the ORR. And I said, I want all the emails. I want whatever information you have. I want the BTM invoice, because there was two companies on that lot. She expressed to me that all she had was from Eric stating of the existing Green Center. So I said, okay. And I thought to myself, well, that's odd, because I've sent emails, Donna sent emails, Dan sent emails,
Okay, well,
Letha did.
your time's up for this
Okay,
one.
but I'm asking you to take this off until the May meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that is the only one I have signed up for citizen comment. Is there anybody else who didn't sign up would like to address council at this time? All right, we will go on to items of community interest. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.0415, the city council may report on any of the following items: A, expressions of thanks, gratitude, and condolences; information regarding holiday schedules; recognition of individuals; reminders regarding city council events; reminders regarding community events; health and safety announcements. And I don't really have anything. Does anybody have any community events or recognitions?
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I would say, we need to put out a thank you to all those that volunteered to make our bike race a success this last weekend. We had, I think, a very successful race. Heard nothing but positive comments from those that were riding and from those that were watching and socializing around the American and Highland Lakes site. But I think it was a very successful event, and it was thanks to the volunteers, people from the Lago Vista community that came out and supported it.
Yes, thank you. And since you bring that up, thanks goes out to everybody that helped with the concert as well on the 29th. Anybody else?
Hold on, Tim. We can't see him, but you can hear him. Okay, go ahead. Tim? Hello?
Dropped him.
Tim, are you there?
Nope, we lost him.
Okay, we've lost him completely.
All right. Well, if he comes back, we'll get back to him.
Mayor, we just need to mark the time when he's gone and when he comes back.
All right. He's gone at 6:46. Is there a picture or anything? Nothing. Oh, okay.
Seems like disconnection.
Well, Tim is at our TML conference, leadership conference right now. That's why he's not in attendance physically. I heard him say something about TML, so I don't know if he was going to address that or not, but he's at a training conference. So earlier today, I met with the Travis County ESD1 Emergency Operations Center, and we had an update on the coronavirus. As we know, it's terrible. The sky's falling. It's a big tragedy out there. So we had to have an update on it. This is coming down from the Texas Department of Health. Right now, Travis County is in what they call Phase 2, which is a suspect case under investigation. They have one or more persons under investigation, and they were expecting to hear back sometime today whether that one or more person tested positive. Right now, we have nobody in Travis County that has been tested positive. If they do, then they will move into Phase 3, which becomes a confirmed case, and whether they tell us where they came from, I mean, if it's from somebody from Lago Vista, I don't know if we'll know that information or not. But right now, we're in Phase 2. So their recommendations says, what are my symptoms? Fever, cough, shortness of breath, which may appear in as few as 2 days or as long as 14 days after exposure. Symptoms are very similar to the flu. How can I avoid infection? Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. They say to sing the happy birthday song while you're washing your hands. If soap and water is not available, use alcohol-based hand sanitizer, rubbing vigorously until hands are dry. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze with a tissue, then throw that tissue in the trash. And clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces. And that is what the health department has put out for their weekly update. So they are still approaching this as something to be taken serious, but as right now, as of no major concern to the Austin, Travis County region. Some of the findings, if you're interested, the risk is for people over the age of 60, those with heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and chronic respiratory disease. Those of us that are 18 years and younger, we only account for 2% of the cases, so I'm good. And that's really all the information that the health department is putting out right now. But we're having weekly phone calls, so if something comes down from EOC that's any different from what we have now, I will be happy to let y'all know as soon as possible. We'll be posting it on Facebook or webpage. I'm sure we'll do Facebook, Nextdoor, and Twitter, and all that good stuff to let y'all know if we progress into a stage 3 or not. Anybody have questions about the coronavirus? All right, that's my health and safety announcement.
Mayor Tim had a comment. Maybe he's back.
back?
So you might want to.
I'm back. I'm at the Texas
6:50.
Municipal League for Leadership Training, and our Mayor Ed Tidwell was recognized for having 42 units of educational credit within the last year, which is about at least a week's worth of attending classes. And I think, Ed, you may be catching up to Dave, but
Oh.
congratulations on your achievement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you.
I'm done.
I got a quick
Roger,
question for
out.
you. Do we have this made available to Darcy and anyone else that wants to see this ordinance with the numbers in it?
Oh, I don't know.
That was given to us when we got here?
I don't know if we do or not. Have we made the fee schedule available to anybody?
We haven't made copies of it.
No.
You want to look at my copy?
Given today.
Well, no, I'll make copies, Mayor, if we want copies.
One, I haven't.
We have to pass the ordinance first.
No, but that's not where we're at, but it's all right. I'll make copies anyway.
All right. Is anybody else with any announcements, health and safety, any things? All right. We'll make sure we get some copies distributed. Anybody in the audience have anything they wanted to share community-wise, announcement-wise? All right, we will go into public hearing and possible action. So first reading. Number 3, the Lago Vista City Council is holding a public hearing to consider a conditional use permit application pursuant to Section 17 of Chapter 14 of the Lago Vista Code of Ordinances to allow for the addition of an accessory building subject to approval of a required amended plat that exceeds the area and height permitted by right at 21003 Green Park Drive, Country Club Estates, Section 7, Lot 1477. And I will open the public hearing at 6:52 PM. And we will start, let me see. All right, so we are considering application here for an accessory building. They're requesting a variance for height and size. It appears to be about a 25 by 25 foot footprint. And they're also,
No, it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. I think it's 51.
oh, okay, I'm sorry, 51. Where did I read that? 51.3 times 51.3. There we go. Now I get it right. And they're requesting a waiver of the 18-foot height restriction to 24 feet to accommodate all their boats, RVs, Camaros, classic car collection. So that's what this application is for. Says understood, coming out of planning and zoning, understood that an approved amended plat merging the two lots would be required for a permit. Roy, where do we stand on that? Is that a condition that's being considered, or do they have to do that before we can?
No, you can approve it subject to that happening. The permit requires that. It's going to happen that way whether you actually verbalize that or not.
Okay.
But that was actually kind of the source of some of the confusion that led to where we are today. We had a variance application involving two lots. I don't know if you guys are aware, we don't always get very accurate information from TCAD about whether there's one lot or one tax account, and we often have to verify that because this was one address, in one part of the application and another address in the other one. We stopped to make sure that we had the ad correct. As you can imagine, the size of the lot impacts the notification boundaries. So it caused quite a bit of confusion. So we kind of slowed down. And there was a bit of confusion as to which hearing this thing was going to appear at. And to make a long story short, the applicant wasn't there. You will notice that there was a, recommendation for a denial from P&Z, but that was more based on his absence. They actually didn't even discuss the application at all Somebody wanted to ask him a question, he wasn't there. They said, well, in that case, I move to, recommend a denial, and that was the end of it. The staff is of the opinion that he's entitled to a recommendation on the merits of the application. And as a result, you may remember at the last council meeting when we heard there might be several members absent, we warned you that at least a deferral might be in order because he's required to have a supermajority for approval.
All right.
And to the best of our knowledge, I mean, even though there might have been questions about the drawings, none of them related to the size or the height. That part was clear cut, and that's the relief he's looking for.
All right. Anybody have comments, questions for staff?
Mr. Mayor, I have been in contact with Mr. Elliott. My recommendation and my motion will be that we remand this to P and Z, allow him the opportunity to present this to them, answer their questions, and get an approval from them before bringing it back to the council.
Okay, well, I'm going to not accept that motion at this time. The public
I know,
hearing,
but that's
public hearing is still open, so.
when we get there.
Okay.
So in the packet, I saw two letters in favor from neighbors. Were there any others that I didn't see?
That's all.
That was everything?
There was no opposition. Like I said, there was not much discussion at all. That was my impression. Aaron was there. It was about a 15-second discussion. Oh, he's not here? Okay.
Is the applicant here tonight?
He is.
Yes.
Okay,
And like I said, his absence was unintentional
right.
at P and Z.
Okay. Anybody have any comments, questions for the applicant,
I have questions for Roy.
for Roy?
Um,
Okay.
I saw a couple of things in looking at this that were troubling to me. One of them was that the primary use for the lot that's in question here, it's a vacant lot. And
That's where the accessory building's going on what is now a vacant lot.
Right.
It's got to be merged into one
okay,
lot.
well, that's what I was going to say.
And he understood that, but we weren't, like I said, because this has been confusing with the GIS data before,
Right.
we have to triple check to make sure, when somebody does this,
Yeah.
we have to go through a lot of effort to make sure because what happens is we'll get a recorded plat, Chris will update our GIS data. TCAD will subsequently, in order to avoid two tax bills, will consolidate the accounts into one and then overwrite our data. And so, this can be confusing sometimes when we have one of these situations.
Yeah.
And it got so confusing last time, we took a little extra time to make sure we had it right.
Yeah, well, I saw that as a stumbling block if the two lots were not merged. And then secondly, the size of the footprint of the accessory building, I think even was noted in this packet that the size of that accessory building actually ends up being almost the same size as the primary home.
It's pretty close. We don't have an exact size
But
because it predates our electronic data, but, you can tell from the size.
But our limit is half of the size.
Correct, and
So-
that is part of the relief he's asking for.
Okay.
Is to exceed that 50%. And in order to have the pitch of the roof match the pitch of the roof of the house, it will actually exceed by a little bit the height of the house. That's also a type of relief he needs.
But we don't know at this point how much over that would be.
Yes, it's 6 feet, 24 feet is
I
what
know,
he
but
said.
if the thing were to be built not on the street but further down, the high point of the lot being.
Oh,
at the road-
correct, right.
So there'd be a little
We
bit of-
always measure from the high point of the lot.
Right, so there'd be maybe not quite the requirement of 6 feet as I saw it.
Right. I think he's 24, I would guess, is a number that he's sure will get him the approval he needs. It may be slightly exaggerated. And we get that a lot, even on the special exception approvals. They will exaggerate and then build it slightly less.
Well, I saw one of the remedies possibly to the actual size of the building, possibly being two smaller buildings of half the size that he needs. I think he has quite a few vehicles that he intends to park in that space. So I thought, if he had a driveway that went right between them and there were two half-size buildings, and he would meet the
Right.
requirement to be.
He's allowed to have two accessory buildings, and you're
Right.
correct.
Exactly.
I think the height is going to get him here anyway, so it's not like he could avoid the application.
Right.
But it's possible that the two smaller ones might even satisfy the height, but.
Well, that's
you
what
know,
I was wondering about too. Probably needs to have a little engineering work done to.
Well,
see if
and
that-
once again, whether you would consider the two smaller buildings less,
Burdensome?
less burdensome than the one. I'm not so sure. It just depends on the situation. The
Well, I'll
two,
just-
the two might restrict you, and it might be even more visible
Yeah.
because the need to keep them separated and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the visibility though isn't quite the problem that I see as much as not being in accordance with our ordinance as far as the size goes.
Right.
That's all I have.
That's right.
Thank you.
But Roy, it also seems like most of it is hidden by trees, though.
Well, and typically, I think that is the criteria,
Right.
is that, the more visible the thing is, the more in line with the ordinance, people would want to see it, But once again, that's an implied criteria. I don't know that it's stated specifically in the ordinance. It's up to both you and the Planning and Zoning Commission to determine what the relevant criteria is for each case.
Got it.
Anybody else? Tim, questions?
Nope.
All right, so if Dice has no more questions, this is a public hearing. And let's see, I have Ron Smith.
Okay, Ron Smith, 20609 Oak Ridge. I actually rise in objection to the ordinance for the purpose of disclosure. I live 1 mile from this location, so I'm not directly impacted or even anywhere close to the notification zone. I did run some numbers here, 51 feet by 51 feet for the accessory building is 2,600 square feet. The actual house is 1,800 square feet, and also going up to 24 feet. Now, I sat up there where you guys did just a couple of years ago, and we just got our tails kicked on a note of 22 activity that occurred in this city, and it was pretty widespread in this town. And we chose not to do the 22-foot height restrictions. This one's at 24. I might also like to add that there's a lot of other people who have RV barns as accessory buildings, and they did comply with the 18-foot height requirement. So they played by the rules. So I would expect everybody to play by the rules unless there's some compelling reason not to, which I don't know that there is a compelling reason other than they want it. Even an RV barn will fit under 18 feet. Just ask Mayor Kruger, he did that himself. So he too played by the rules. So I just want you to know I'm rising up in opposition to this, and whether P&Z brings it back to you or not, I really think they need to lower the height and get the consolidation done and just play by the existing rules. Every time you make an exception, it seems like the next guy wants an exception. And it seems like a lot of it's coming from outside the area. People move in, they buy multiple lots, they buy multiple homes, and then all of a sudden we become the storage facility for Lago Vista in residential neighborhoods. Now, the lot next to me is vacant. Maybe I should go out and, build a building like this too, but I can tell you that it won't fit the neighborhood. So that's why I asked you to consider it, if it comes back to you or whether you decide it tonight. All right, that's it.
All right, thank you. That is the only person I have signed up to speak. Is there anybody else from the audience who would like to address the issue? All right. Well, I believe Councilman Weatherly was wanting to make a motion, so
Are we not
I'm,
going to hear from the applicant?
I asked if anybody had
You
questions.
didn't want to speak about it?
Sure, I can. I would like to maybe reconsider.
Name and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike Elliott, 2101 Green Park Drive. Sorry. Since we didn't really get a chance to go through with Planning and Zoning Committee to have their, look at the, and answer any questions that they may have, I'd like to have them have their take on it first, before we go through the motions here. So that would be my recommendation.
Are you under time constraints or
No, sir, not at all.
not in a hurry for this one?
No,
A
sir.
Cautionary tale, we've been through this once last year, and it was a 6-month process for a guy to get a storage building, and there were plenty of mistakes on the part of the city and P and Z and going back and forth, and I would hate to relive that with this one if we could.
We've got time.
Okay.
No rush. So I'd appreciate it if y'all we went through the procedures the way we're supposed to.
All right,
Do we know when the next P and Z meeting is?
next week.
Next week.
Well, it'd have to be noticed again, so we'd have to hold it in April.
So it can't be that next week's.
No, sir, because we have to give notice that it's a hearing, it's another hearing on this application, so they have to.
I hope we don't see you in 6 months.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:07 PM. And at this time, council discussion, possible decision. We can either take no action or I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that this be remanded to planning and zoning for proper evaluation.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries unanimous. All right, action items. Number 4, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the selection and approval of a contract for strategic planning services. So, as you know, we have had in place for 4 years now. I guess it was the 2015 is when it started, but it's been in effect for a good 4 years now. But we've had the comprehensive master plan and our future land use map that goes along with comprehensive master plan. But what we haven't had was the strategic planning on how to take everything that's in our comprehensive master plan and our future land use map and develop a clear-cut strategy that the staff that the council has put forward, that staff is in agreement with and knows how to proceed, and that the community has been brought in and allowed to put their input in on the priorities and how to strategically go about executing our comprehensive master plan along with our future land use map. So we set out an RFP. We received four proposals. We did interviews. There was an interview team of myself, City Secretary Sandra Barton, Parks and Rec Director Chris Mobley, and City Manager Josh Ray. We did the 4 interviews, and the interview team selected GAP Strategies as our top choice. And you can see the information in your packet. And so tonight we are considering the strategic planning, hiring GAP Strategies to conduct our strategic planning services. They're estimating a 10-month process. That'll take us all the way through all the public hearings and community meetings and the committee meetings and the staff meetings and everything that would go into the strategic planning services. And Josh, do you have anything else to add to it?
No, sir.
Questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, there is a considerable difference in price between Gap Strategies and the other people that put in a bid. I'm wondering if we could get some explanation on why they're so much more expensive. What do they provide that the others do not that would make them worth the price?
Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
we put the proposal in the packet for council to look at for GAP strategies. We had, as it says in staff summary, have the staff summary, or they have the proposals for the other firms as well. The GAP strategies has a longer process, which provides more community involvement, more community meetings. And then as our committee discussed this, we felt confident that the deliverable is also going to be more effective as a tool and not just something that, as we say, sits on the shelf and isn't used and executed. One of the things that GAP Strategies provides as well is an implementation outreach effort, so that once we have the deliverable, which is the 5-year strategic plan, then they come work with us on the implementation of that plan, and then they do a follow-up as well to ensure that we're able to update the plan annually so that we're moving forward with it. And then after year 1, then you have a 4-year plan. And then the final part that they include is your next planning process for the next 5-year process.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Just wanted everybody to know that there is logic behind going to the highest bidder in this case. They do provide quite a number of services and will provide a much longer interaction and better interaction with the public than what the other agencies that bid are going to provide for us. And this is, I think, money well spent to pay the extra price.
Right. And Josh already stated it, but for me, it was the implementation and the follow-up that so much, even though the price is a little higher or a bit higher, the implementation and follow-up was worth the extra expense.
Here, I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
When you have a chance. Now?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I had a couple of generic questions. The first one was, were they actually going to do a presentation for council? But obviously, I guess the thing that was in the packet is their presentation, so that kind of takes care of that. The other thing the thing that I would want to know from them if they were here and I was speaking to them is I would want to know, are they going to produce a product? In other words, are they going to produce a plan that we can look at and follow that has in part of its construct the priorities of the things that need to be done and the order in which they will be done? Those kinds of things I think are important to me, and I think they should be to everyone else. Otherwise, if we don't have a document that shows what it is that we're supposed to be doing in the time that we're supposed to be doing, then it's not really much of a plan.
Yes, no, it will be a quite expansive product that will take everything from the meetings they have with the public, with staff, with council, and then everything we have in the master plan and tied in with our future land use, with our economic development and everything. And it'll be, I think their samples were 40, 50 pages thick of, and it's a.
Well, it was a concern to me because when I go back to the times when I was campaigning to run for office, there was a lot of talk about a strategic plan. But when I asked Sandra, can you provide me a copy of that strategic plan? There was none. There was none. And so, talk is cheap if you don't have it on paper where you can actually see it and see what it is that you're implementing and how you're doing it and when you're doing it. It's just nonsense to me. And that's what I thought we possibly got out of the comprehensive master plan that was then followed up by the strategic plan that I never saw any evidence of.
Right. So what you're referring to is back early on, we would have strategic planning. We haven't had one since January of 17, so it's been 3 years. I think I'm the only one that was here.
Yeah, you were.
But our strategic planning sessions back then were mostly team building. So council would get together on the weekend and we would do little studies that told us what kind of personality we had and your fellow council member, and you'd come up with some strategies of how council wanted to approach things, and it was something for our staff to follow, to try to fulfill our strategies, but it was never really detailed. It never really got into priorities, and it didn't take in the citizen input at all. I mean, it was an open meeting, but, citizens didn't come to our little team building thing and participate. So it was a one-day thing. And then the person would go back or 2-day maybe, and go back and put something together. So this time we opted for something that is way more inclusive and detailed and outlined. You've heard over the last couple of years that the citizens don't feel like we're completely always doing our homework and completely vetting things. And so this gives us the opportunity to include the citizens and show them that, yes, we are working to vet everything and study everything and show and include them in the process. So
I think it's important to be able to see that that the things that are laid out in the plan are measurable when they're completed. You can see that we've hit the mark that was intended to be done. But if it's not something that's documented, I think that would be a swing and a miss.
Well, Mr. Mayor, Arch, that was, when we reviewed the comprehensive plan, that was the problem that we were having when we were looking at the comprehensive plan. It had the goals, but not the steps that are gonna get you to the goals.
Exactly. So
When I went to a workshop on strategic planning, it showed the actual steps that
And
are
that's what you'd-
involved in getting, and
and
this
that's what you'd
company
expect,
seems to,
yeah.
that's what this company's about.
good. Well, that's what I'm after.
yeah, of the 4 interviews, 2 of them were kind of business-based and kind of general, didn't really seem to quite fit a city. The top 2 were definitely more in line with city government and things like that we're actually doing. And
Well, this is a very impressive team because there are people that have been former council members, city managers, and I forgot what the other 2 people did. So they're a more impressive team probably than the other people that made their proposals.
And Gap Strategies is also local. Their office is based out of Buda.
Oh, good.
But they're currently working in the Marble Falls area on a strategic plan. And so they've done a lot in this area. They really know this area. That was also an advantage they had over the Ascentium team because they knew about Central Texas and the things we deal with. Ascentium, I think, was from Chicago? Okay, they weren't the city.
Cincinnati was management partner.
Management Partners was Ohio. Okay.
Thank you.
So I've got a question. I've read all their references and all their job titles and saw the different communities they've worked with. Did you guys as a team follow up on any of those and actually get direct references from people other than the presenters?
Mayor, I've followed up with them and have followed up on the references.
So you've got happy people that have worked with them in the past and.
Based on the references, they're all happy people. I don't have any of the ones that they didn't list that says unhappy. And we do the standard Google search to look and see other people that they've worked on and see if they have any negative comments, and we didn't see any negative comments in the process. The one challenge with this, going back to Councilor Davila, is that this strategic planning process being 10 months is a lot longer than most strategic planning processes. It's more along the lines of a comprehensive plan. And so when you're looking at this, like the mayor told these guys, it's a value add that we're not rushing the process so that we get a deliverable that can be an asset tool. And so when you have those conversations, that's one of the first questions we asked their references was, why is the process so long? And they come back and tell you how great it is that it's inclusive and it's well worth the dollar. So the references, as they chose, were fantastic.
But we don't know anyone personally that's had an experience with them.
I did not, and I didn't know any of the ones that they had there personally.
Mr. Mayor, so this would begin somewhere in April? If
I'm sure as soon as we vote yea or nay, the
Yeah,
contract
but
would.
if we approved it, it would begin probably around April?
Yeah, Mayor,
Yeah.
depending on the council action, if council were to take action tonight, the first process is for this team to sit down with council. That's their first step.
Okay.
And so we would work with council to see how soon they could sit down with council. And then the council develops the strategy, the outreach strategy with them. And so that, even though we've got a layout for what they would like to see the schedule, they would work with this council to determine how they're going to roll out their outreach.
Okay.
And one of my biggest questions that I asked during the interviews was, we know what this means to council, and we know what it means to staff as far as strategic planning, but I wanted them to explain to me what it meant to the citizens of Lago Vista. So it was really good to hear how they could take our comprehensive master plan and our CIP projects and our infrastructure and the town square center, anything else that we are trying to accomplish, and work with the citizens, get the feedback, get them involved, and establish priorities and the strategy for completing everything that we would like to get done.
Mayor, I have one other thing that I was looking at my notes, and I thought to ask this earlier, and I missed it. I'm interested in knowing if this company can produce a copy of a prior strategic plan that they have created. Can we get a copy of that to see what it looks like?
Mayor, yes.
Because I'm interested in their
We have a
format.
couple of their copies.
Oh, do you?
We do
Okay.
have those.
All right.
We have them electronically, and so I can forward those out to council just to show you. And what'll happen is that'll be a guideline when you're meeting with them to talk about the deliverable, and that'll help them see how you want to see that document moving forward.
Okay, and then the final thing that I had is, they mentioned in their packet there that they would possibly have future consultations, and they would have fees. Is that an hourly rate fee or what?
It is, Mayor. That's an hourly rate based on the services that we would want moving forward. And that's the area where, coming on the back end, after the first 5-year plan is, that's where the other consultation would come in.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Tim?
No.
All right. Well, if I have no more from council, I have Ron Smith.
Okay, Ron Smith, 20609 Oak Ridge. All right, you've used a couple of words interchangeably, but I want to make sure I understand this right. We have a comprehensive master plan.
Yes.
We've done it 3 times before. I was involved in all 3 of them. Now you're talking strategic plan. Is that really the comprehensive master plan with a section called strategic sitting inside of it? Or is this separate and independent of a comprehensive master plan?
Separate and independent.
So what's the difference?
This establishes our priorities
So
with,
you won't get to the detailed plan that Mr. Davila is looking for? Because it's a
Yes.
strategy. It's a strategy. It's not a detail, it's not an implementation plan.
It is implemented.
it includes all
Well, then
that.
it's a master plan then.
No, the comprehensive master plan had like a goal they wanted to achieve.
Right?
This would take you step by step through it to completion.
Okay. Just some comments on 3 prior ones that I've worked on. Typically, what you get from vendors on this is you get about 80% history and generic stuff that sits in the front, which is basically fills up your bookshelf. And then you get maybe 5 or 10 sheets in Section 8 that's called an implementation plan, which is just a listing of things you want to go do. And they don't even attempt in many cases to even try to put it to a year. They just say, in the next 5 years, you can do these 400 things. So if you're really trying to get to a Gantt chart, which is where I think you're driving, so that you can have measurable, definitive deliverables that you can go do, it's going to have to be a lot more detailed than a strategic plan. I mean, someone's got to go into every one of those projects and open the can up and at least take the next level down just to have a shot at it.
Correct.
Now, you've also got a lot of plans that are with the city that are not in any plans. For example, you have a library plan that sits outside of everything. You have an airport plan that sits outside of everything. You have a Parks and Rec plan that sits out. Are these going to be folded into the plans, or are we just going to reference these things through some kind of link?
No, they're all supposed to be folded into it.
They're all going to be folded. So every year, you're going to have to go in there and readjust it based upon the performance of that year.
And that's the beauty of a strategic plan. Unlike the failures of the last comprehensive plan that we're supposed to be working from, the strategic plan is 5 years' worth, not a 25 or 30-year plan that shows action items. So we will update it annually.
So who's going to have the roads pinned on them to keep it updated every year?
Everything's my responsibility.
Okay. And is there a review process? Before, we've always tagged it to planning and zoning, is they had the review to make sure, at least the first view, make sure everything happens. You're not going to use planning and zoning, it's going to be staff?
Recommendation this is, it would come back to council every year, be presented back to council, not to planning and zoning.
Really? Okay. I don't know if I agree with that, but it looks like my time's up. Thanks.
All right, that is the only one I have signed up for that agenda item. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on? All right. So this is it.
Darcy DeVoe, 2023 Travis Drive, Unit 12. Not everybody saw the whole packet, and could you tell them the price differences and the point difference that you felt that these people adjusted? I believe it's a 1.25 in their inquiry of how you felt about them. You had like 3 columns going across it, and it said how you felt about them, then their price, and something else. Could you just tell the people the bids for all of them? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about of the, where I felt about them or anything. But there was Gap Strategies had a score of 81.5. Their proposed cost was $72,500. And Cynthium was 80.25 was their score at $45,400. Management Partners had a 79.5 with a price of $35,990. And One Auth had a score of 65 and a proposed cost of $50,000. Is that what you're, okay.
Man, there's one added factor that in our interviews, we use a two setup system. So the interview all has a number for a scoring system. They all, every interview we handle typically bases on what we score based on the question. So each question receives a monetary number, and then the total score for the interview has that. And then each member of the panel then comes together. We average their scores, which is what the mayor just read out and what you're seeing in the staff summary. But then the discussion comes into, this is their score, and then this is our selection. Most times, the top score is going to be the number one selection, but there are some intangibles that you have during those interviews. So it's not just based on the score, just like the bids for projects aren't just based on the dollar figure. It's based on a compound of all those factors tied in. And so we put that in the staff summaries so that people can see those numbers and see the other factors, just for that reference point. But I don't think we have that. We definitely don't have the document that says these are the positives and negatives about each. That's that discussion that happened with that panel, and then to make the recommendation to the council.
And do you not know how I feel about the team? I said, do you not know how I feel about the selection?
No, it was just that it only had a 1.25 difference between the two highest ones, but a $30,000 or $25,000 difference in the price. So that's all. I'm just $25,000 and a 1.25 difference in score rating. That's all.
Yeah, it's when you have 10 or 12 questions that you're asking and the scale that you're using, the scores are usually, no matter who we're evaluating, the scores are usually within 1 or 2 points, almost always. So,
And the other factor, Mayor, that we didn't put in this column, and sometimes we put there, the other one is factor in the time, and without you asking the question of how long Essentium would take, their proposal is a 4 to 5 month. So effectively, 4 to 5 month, pretty comprehensive versus a 10-month, pretty comprehensive. And it all comes down to how effective we feel that firm will be in delivering the product, like Councilor Davila is saying. And it's that time spectrum versus the cost. Great points.
Thank you.
all right, anybody have further
Just
discussion?
curiosity, is it the reason that, so it was you two, Sandra, and who was the fourth one?
Chris Mobley.
Oh, Chris Mobley. So why did we not, the whole council look at this presentation?
You are.
We didn't see the other two.
The other
Just
three?
curious. Yeah, the other
The other
three.
three?
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the process of selecting a firm and making a recommendation to council, and then it's presented to council. And just like the staff summary, if you wanted to see the other proposals, you can request those other proposals. If council decides that they want to go through another process, you just make the action. You can go through any process that you want to do.
We've had presentations to the whole council. I'm wondering why this one went that smaller route. I guess it's more efficient to have essentially a committee looking at it instead of the whole council deciding on which company.
I don't know of any time where we've had the council consider all applicants for a request for proposal.
And we've had a lot of them give presentations. I was just, no big deal.
Can you give me an example? I've never had 4 companies
Retail
said.
strategies?
Do what?
Remember retail strategies? And then the city mobile app people give us all a presentation?
Yeah, but that was just something I brought in for them to give us an example on. That was not, there was no RFP ever put out for that.
Right.
Either one of those.
I can acknowledge that.
But as far as I know, for every RFP, whenever we're looking for bids, we only are presented with the staff recommendation on their bid.
That's all I have.
Anybody else? Tim, questions?
No, not at this time. I would probably like to discuss it further, just to see what we're going to get, actually.
All right, it's open for action. This is first reading. But at this time, if there's no more questions, I'll either accept a motion or no action.
So the next reading would be at the next council meeting, correct?
Correct.
I like the analysis that I saw from Gap Strategy, so.
All right,
Mayor, I'll make the motion. I move that we approve and go forward with GAP Strategies to provide the product that they are bidding on, which is a detailed strategic plan.
A second.
all right. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mayor, if that action is considered, could Councilor Davila add to authorize city manager to execute the contract?
And authorize the city manager to authorize the city manager to execute the contract.
Does my second agree with that?
Yes.
All right. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to note that I would like to do a little more research myself, so probably not going to be able to support this motion.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Tim?
Nope.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay.
Nay?
All right. Motion carries 5-1. All right. Number 5. Do what? He's not here, so we will skip number 5. And we will go to, we're actually going to skip down in your agenda to item number 9.
That's part of the,
We're going down to, we're going to do number 9 now.
It's on.
that's consent
Is that the
agenda.
building related
Oh,
fees?
okay.
The fee schedule.
Yeah,
Is that not under consent agenda?
Yeah,
Yeah, you can pull it. You just have to do the consent first. You gotta pull it if we're gonna take it out of consent, is all I was saying.
okay. All right. I want to do number 9. Let me see, where's my thing? All right, so we're going to go into the consent agenda. And all matters listed under consent agenda are to be considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion on these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. So at this time, I would like to pull number 9 out of the consent agenda. And if there's no objection, then I will accept the motion on the number 8 consent agenda, and then we'll consider number 9 separately.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda number 8.
Which is the approval of February 6, 2020 regular council meeting minutes.
Yes. Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, here, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. All right, so number 9, approval of a contract for interior design and master planning for the public library. The reason that I have asked number 9 to be considered separately is because on a separate agenda item, we have we'll be considering a budget amendment, and I didn't think it was appropriate to approve a budget amendment without first approving whether we're actually going to approve the contract or not. So number 9, approval of a contract for interior design and master planning for the public library. As you know, we have approved the expansion for the public library. Our library director, Jan Steele, has requested to hire an interior designer that has experience with public libraries to assist her in reviewing the interior layout of the current library and how it will be impacted with the new construction. Ms. Steele assembled together a subcommittee to assist her with the interior design review and to make the recommendation to council for this contract. Contract will require an amendment to the city council budget, and the contract will be used for the design of the interior of the library facilities and is set as not to exceed $8,180. Staff is requesting council to approve the contract in the amount of $9,500 to allow for 2 of the optional services.
What is meant by that?
Mayor, if I may, just what you were following on, so make sure this is very clear, and even it's not just an interior designer, it's not someone that comes in and just picks furniture and the pictures on the wall, so I don't want to downplay the magnitude of this. This is a big process, similar to the process the library went before when they expanded into the fire department bay. So they had to redesign the flow of the interior and then how that flow could be most effective.
That's a feng shui.
Pretty much, it's feng shui plus, so it's next level. So what they're looking at now is you have to think they're going to get double the space, the existing space, and they have to determine what the best utilization of that space is and how the new flow will work in the library. So Jan's team I think they received 3 proposals. One came in late. They looked at their proposals, and they're making a recommendation based on the qualifications of the proposals they received. Back to Councilor Williams' question, on their contract, they have the total contract at the 8180. Then they have optional services that have price tags on it. And so what we're requesting back to the council is to include the additional $1,320 for either the, definitely for the CAD drawings, so that on the construction side, we're going to be ahead of the game when walls are ready to be built on the interior that are separate from the interior build out on the expansion. And then also for the design. So all these things are going to be laid out. That's one of the beauties of this contract and this firm is their ability to have the experience, as the mayor said, and to show what that layout's going to be to optimize the overall operational flow of the library. If that,
Got
if
it.
that makes sense.
Yep.
And we have our library director in the audience tonight, if anybody would like to hear from her or ask questions.
How did-
Jan?
yeah.
We-
Yes, sir.
Was the committee very happy with the, you had your committee working on this? so-
We did, yeah. It was pretty much unanimous.
Okay.
Yeah, we had 2 bids, and both people would have been acceptable. You know, this particular company had worked in a number of libraries. Everybody was very happy with the work they'd seen her do. She's also used by the Talker Foundation in Austin when they give a grant. She's one of the architects / designers that they send out to make sure that project will be worth the money that they're going to give you. And so she comes highly recommended.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Anybody else? Questions? Tim?
No, thank you.
Okay. We also have our library advisory board chairperson here. If anybody has questions for, no. Sharon, do you care to address anything? You don't have to, I'm just, okay, thank you. All right, I have no one from the audience that has signed up for this. Well, it was consent agenda, but if there's somebody who would like to address council or the library at this time, please do so. All right. This time I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the 9,500 to allow for the 2 optional services and let them move forward on the interior design.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mayor only asked the same thing, is if the council member would consider allowing the manager to execute the contract,
And allowing the mayor to execute the contract.
Manager.
The manager.
or the mayor, somebody to execute the contract.
City manager to execute the contract.
Art, you good with that?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. All right, so now we'll go to number 6. Bring up my thing here. I think my police chief is laughing at me. All right, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding ordinance number 20-03-05-01, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, pursuant to Vernon's Texas Codes Annotated, Local Government Code, Chapter 102, Section 102.007 Bravo, providing for amendments to ordinance number 19-09-19-02 for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2019, and ending September 30, 2020. Amendments to said budget by department are set forth in Exhibit A, attached to this ordinance. We have considered 2 projects that have now been approved within this fiscal year 2020 budget. The 2 projects are the strategic planning process and the Town Center Development Library Expansion Project. This is a budget amendment for $82,000, which covers the $72,500 for the strategic planning contract and the $9,500 for the library interior design. Budget amendment comes out of the general fund reserve account. It says, or could be funded out of any revenues that exceed expenditures throughout the fiscal year. But for all general purposes, it's coming out of the general fund reserve account unless otherwise noted at some point in the future. Questions, comments? All right. Anybody from the audience have any questions or comments? All right, at this time, I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we ratify ordinance number 20-03-05-01.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. All right, so now we are on agenda item number 7. At this time, I'm going to pull agenda item number 7 off the agenda list. We didn't get all the information we'd requested, so we will consider this at a future time. Ron, I do have you signed up for number 7. Are you okay with that, or? Okay. And we'll go to discussion items. Number 10, discussion regarding potential future consideration of an ordinance to amend Article 1.000, General and Administrative Fees, Article 3.00, Building-Related Fees, and Article 7.000, Zoning and Annexation Fees of Appendix A, Fee Schedule of the Lago Vista Code of Ordinances. And I'm going to address something that was brought up earlier by Ms. DeVoe. She had requested some things be put off for a while. These items that you requested are for discussion only. No action will be taken tonight, so we will try and discuss and answer any questions, and then at some point in the future, it will be brought back. So, 10.
Mr. Mayor, is there any problem with discussing the items? Could we just discuss?
No, that is what we're doing. We are just discussing.
Okay,
They are not for action.
okay.
I just wanted to make sure that Darcy knew that I was not ignoring her request to
Okay.
put stuff off, but I already knew that it was just for discussion, so.
Gotcha.
Hopefully this will answer some of her questions when we get to all these items, and then she will have more when we do bring it back at a later date.
Gotcha.
So number 10, discussion regarding, I've already read this. Okay. Questions, comments?
Mayor, I want to lay out the way this is presented, and we had a couple questions about getting the document. I do believe that Eric Millay has passed out the document to anyone that needs a copy of it, so if you need another copy, let me know. These items will be included in the next agenda, and it'll be included in an advertising if the council wants us to move forward with this process. So knowing that we've tied these multiple areas in together, what staff needed was we needed direction from the council on which items to include so that the advertising for the public hearing, we make sure that although we're just advertising the ordinance and the change in fee schedule, we don't want to put items in there if there's no reason to have the items included, or if we missed something and we want to add it in. And so in the staff summary, as you already said, we're addressing changes related to the PDD process. We're changing a request to remove late fees from the library. We're changing fees for GIS services, inspection fees for construction activity violations. These are all things that we've talked about. Implementing the Public Information Act, information for open records requests, fees, and just going back to the comment there, we would simply, as you'll see in this draft, put the language from the PIA or from the Attorney General's opinion in our fee schedule. The only reason we would want to put that in is so that people are aware of the fee without having to reference another document, another living document, i.e. the PI, the Public Information Act. And then the last one being a permit fee increase to cover the discussion council had and that Councilor Robbins presented to council concerning the road repair fee. And so you'll see some of those changes on that draft that would relate to how we would create a road repair fee fund something. And so those dollars would therefore be routed back to that account by virtue of the fee schedule here.
Because the two-step PDD process, we've already approved, and the same with the road fee, correct?
Yes, sir. But the thing is, you don't have a mechanism by which to do the process. So
Right.
from the PDD, for example, if someone comes in now, the current fee schedule would be what we use, but we've changed the policy.
Right.
So therefore, you need to change the fee that goes along with it. So you're correct, Mayor.
All right.
Same thing with the road fee, but the challenge is the way that council looked at the road fee it has to be legal. And so based on our conversations with staff and with our city attorney, we need to create a mechanism by which that we're doing something that council earmarks specifically for road repair fee, fund, account, whatever that may be, and that has the mechanism to generate that revenue.
Yes, has to be legal.
And so as I understand this, the increase in the building permit fees is where that money's at?
Mayor, that's correct. So if we do simple math on some of these, look at an 1,800 square foot home. Typically, that fee that you'll see on exhibits or Appendix A, item number 3.1A, is 1,800 square feet. It was 0.25, so times 0.25 per square feet is 450. And then if you do the opposite, the 1,800 times the 0.75, that's 1,350. So effectively that's a $900 increase based on that rate structure. One of the things that council had said to staff was, you want to find a fee schedule that balances on the size of the home, per se. With the rationale being a lot of the items are going to remain constant, i.e. the trucks for a foundation is typically going to be the same, but that if there are more vehicles, construction vehicles involved in the construction of the home, there should be a graduated fee. We discussed the flat fee, a graduated, and the overall ability to measure the amount of traffic that's going to be generated due to building this home. So that's one area we could look at and create that impact.
Got it.
No, that's a long answer. The answer was yes. Is the answer.
So excuse me, since I was just handed this, how is it the actual road repair fee, how is it delineated in that 75 cents per square foot? How do we set that 50 cents aside for the road repair?
So what
What's the
council
mechanism?
would do, Mayor, you would then create the mechanism outside of the fee schedule. You would say, we're earmarking this revenue stream to this account, this fee, this fund. So council would then take that action to make that.
So that we would have that,
Percentage or a certain dollar? Or we
Well,
do-
like the mayor said, you would take 50 cents off of that fee and put it directly into that account.
Okay.
And then that action you could say, I know one thing that Councilor Collins pulls up is it's a sunset. You could say, we're going to do this for a year, or we're going to do it in perpetuity until council takes an action to remove the previous action.
And so that will be brought back, that action will be brought to us as well whenever this comes back?
When you have the public hearing and the consideration, it'll be on the same agenda, Mayor. Yes, sir.
All right.
You would take fee schedule action A, next action item consideration would be that.
Okay. So I'm going to go, number 1, removal of late fees for the library. Why not?
Well, once again, Jan's here if you have questions. Jan did send out a detailed list of why, but it's so much easier if you have questions on removal.
How do we punish these people that don't want to return their stuff?
That's line number 8 on your sheet that you don't have.
There are a number of libraries across the nation now that are starting to eliminate fees, and there are several reasons. For our library, for instance, we lowered our late fees a few years ago to 10 cents a day. You get a 3-day grace period, then it's only 10 cents an item, and there's a $5 cap on any overdue item. But you check out 10 things, that can add up to $50. So what happens is people just don't come in anymore. They don't bring the things back, we don't see them. And so, and we forgive a lot of fees. I mean, if you have a good reason, if you've been sick, we forgive a lot of children's books fees. We know it's tough on the moms trying to find the kids. As a parent, I remember what a nightmare that was, trying to find my daughter's books. But, so we forgive a lot anyway. And our thought is that if we just forgive the fees, if you don't bring your books back, eventually you will have your card blocked. So you would not be able to come in and use the computers or check out anything else. And then if it gets to a point that it's become quite an expensive thing, we would have to do something, work with the court system or something, because that's theft of city property. But we're finding from other libraries, like in the Chicago area, other big cities, they're finding that as soon as they eliminated the fees, people started coming back in. And so I had a young man come to me a few years ago. He had a $5 fee. And when I asked him for it, he said, my dad can't pay the rent. I can't. How am I going to do this? So I'm not taking money from that kid, you know? So this is the kind of thing, it tends to hit the people that can at least afford it. So that's our thought. So.
I just had to ask.
Yeah, and then one other interesting thing, I looked up the figures today. The amount of money that we earned from fees was less than 0.5% of the whole library budget for the year 2018-19 fiscal year.
I don't have a problem, I just had to ask.
Yeah, the economic impact, as Jan presented, was $836 on the year out of 200,000 virtually. So
I'm surprised it was even that high.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Nope, thank you, Jen. All right. So the GIS services now, skipping, I know what number 2 is, so number 3, GIS. We explain what we're wanting to do there?
So, Mayor, there's a couple things. When people come in and they're looking for staff to generate maps, this is not something where an action item requires staff to generate maps. This is someone coming in saying, hey, I want to get a map of an area. I want to get a map of properties. I want to see utility lines. These take time to generate. So we don't just pull off, we're not just printing a screen. We're adding layers and moving to satisfy the request. This is outside of an open records request, where an open records request is simply to generate a record that already exists. These are new services, map services that someone would come in. And so you have a range of hourly services based on what that request is.
So.
And it looks like the only changes are to like number 3 and 4, really? 1 and 2, no changes?
Correct. So there were changes on the 1 and 2 that show printing the existing which means that's something that's already been created. And that means if at one point Josh Ray came in and requested a map of Thunderbird, and then Ed Tidwell comes in requesting the same map of Thunderbird, it's already a created map. Therefore, there's no additional requirements. And then you see the larger change in 3 and 4. Yes, sir.
Okay. And then custom.
Yeah, and so the custom is if something's not been created and it takes time to create that, that's the different sizes. So on 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're looking at the size of these documents. Customized means you're coming in, like I just explained, to ask for some other document.
So these GSI maps would show the infrastructure that's on a particular street?
Depending on what someone's asking for, typically they're going to ask for properties, property lines, amenities, utilities. They're layers. So your GIS is, the beautiful thing about GIS is it's a multi-layer service. And so they add the layers of what they want. The majority of the requests are going to be for the utilities. For example, you want to come in and prospect about, should I buy these lots? Right. You're going to want to see how close the utility infrastructure is. That's a layer that can be produced by our GIS services so that then you can determine, based on what you see on the map, what the estimated utility extension fees are going to be. Then the next step is they come in and they pay $100 to have the GIS generate the cost estimate sheet. So then they know what our numbers are. Okay. But they could take that GIS map they got on step 1, they could take that over to their contractor and ask their contractor, based on this map, can you give me an estimate for what that would cost? So that's the typical request that we receive is for water and wastewater utility services.
So if a real estate agent is trying to sell a particular property on an underdeveloped street, he would be able to pull this GSI map and see how close to the property the utility lines run.
Yes, sir. That's a great example of someone that would come in to see it and to verify.
Got it. Thank you, Dave. You're welcome.
All right, inspection fees for the construction activity violations. I know this would be welcomed by a lot of people in the community because of the silt fences and the garbage that blows into people's yards. And I've been quite a few requests for us to do something to hold the developers, builders more accountable.
Yeah, and Mayor, the positive impact on this is there are multiple inspections that are outside of just your building inspections that someone may have a code violation. And so if one house is a multiple violator, then this says there's going to be a negative impact. And so if people are asking that there's a more fees in terms of having additional visits out to a property to have something inspected, this is that item. This is the mechanism by which we're not just having our staff go out 4 and 5 times without that being covered. Because one of the things you want to see on the building inspections and those fees, even inspection fees, you want to see it covered by the cost.
Mayor and Council, I just wanted to interject a little bit on the utility side, on the request on the utilities. We do get a lot of requests on the utilities. However, we are very reluctant to provide anyone broad spectrum utility information for safety purposes, especially if the utilities are located close to water sewer plants or pump stations or lift stations and things like that. I just don't want to throw that out there for someone who intends to say, hey, I want a big map of all these city utility infrastructure map, and that's going to be a big no.
And Mayor, that goes back to federal regulations back to 9/11, post 9/11 of protecting this, and this is part of our emergency operations plan as well.
Can we make sure my house is redacted from all maps so nobody knows where I live? Thank you.
We will redact Green Street from the fee schedule.
All right, what number am I on? 5, open records request.
Before we leave number 4.
Oh, okay.
Josh, you mentioned code violation fees. Would that be then inspection fees for construction / code violation? Number 4?
Let me flip over to the spot. So,
Because you mentioned code violations.
so this is re-inspection. So there's re-inspection fees for construction activity violations, and then re-inspection fees for items that aren't fixed. You ask if it's for code as well?
Yes.
I don't think we've included an item that's separate for code at this time. That's just part of the dialogue that we've had
Yeah,
moving forward.
that's what I thought.
Only building
But
fees.
When I heard code violations, that got my attention.
So point being, if that's one of those areas that you want us to look at in greater detail or add, this is where that dialogue would happen now. So we're not just creating the fee schedule and the public hearing without that included.
I'd like to see that, for sure.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, this would be a little bit different because we don't charge them a fee for doing a code inspection anyway. That's a fine. So a re-inspection, if we go out there and re-inspect them, there's still no fee. It's just a fine.
What we did in chapter 3 about the construction activity.
Right.
To give it some teeth, this is the consequence that we.
Okay.
The website, I think, is about ready to go too, to report the violation.
Oh, good, good.
It was timely to do all this.
We'll take another look at that one.
Okay.
Yeah. So when,
This is the enforcement tool of that order.
Gotcha.
but when it comes to the code violations and stuff, that eventually would get to
That goes to court.
court.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Number 5, open records request fee.
So Mayor, I was referencing earlier on page, so on the exhibit or the appendix, you're going to go down to the bottom section, and that's the bottom, which is A, 1, 2, and then B. You'll look at this terminology coming from the Public Information Act. So we haven't included that in our fee schedule. So our discussion has been, even though you do not have to include it in the fee schedule, I believe that it's better to include it so that people understand anything it's outside of here that would require a fee based on the AG's opinion of the PIA, that we put it inside the schedule.
It's in the draft, I think.
It is. Yeah, you've got it on the top. That's the section I'm relating to, Mayor, is the wording in red.
I did forget the library stuff. I need to strike that. I just forgot.
Yeah, and that'll be a removal.
And, well, and I noticed that on Exhibit A, page 2, number 1, library fee shall not be assessed in connection with public information requests that can be satisfied by 50 or fewer pages. I think that was something that Darcy had brought up at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, and this is spot on.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, some of this is being added. I just want to make sure, this is not inclusive of every fee that could be charged under the Public Information Act. The Public Information Act allows cities to adopt their own set of fees that are up to 25% more than what the fees that the AG establishes. They have a long list of fees, and so if you don't adopt your own fees, you go by the AG's fee schedule. And that is what we will use unless we have a specific fee adopted here. For the two, for some of the services that we're providing, almost across the board, the cost to the city to provide documents in response to a Public Information Act request is well above what the AG allows. But for the specific things that we're asking for, as far as collecting and pulling information, we're asking to adopt these fees for the labor costs.
Right.
Because typically the labor costs are capped at $15 per hour. Because that doesn't cover the city's cost to do this process, we're asking to adopt these specific fees. And for example, in B, the labor fee for IT, your IT department, if they have to manipulate data, it's $35.50. So for those two specific items, we're asking to adopt something that's more than what the AG allows. The rest of the fees will follow the AG's schedule as far as the cost per page. The language in number 1 and number 2 are directly from the AG's handbook on Public Information Act requests. So I just didn't want there to be confusion that we are only doing this. We will follow the AG's schedule with the exception of these two.
Right. Okay, so on B, the labor for the IT department, I guess there's no printed 50-page that goes hand to hand with that because it's all digital?
Right. So if you're simply providing copies, the first 50 pages is free. But if you have to manipulate data, or the labor side of that, that's where the cost comes in. Now, not every Information Act request is going to require some type of manipulation by IT. Sometimes it's documents we have, and in fact, for the most part, anything that we have that's already on the website, we're just going to provide them a link to the website of where they can find it, and they can go get it for free. And we don't have to do physical work to produce it otherwise.
Good. Thank you. And permit fee, road repair, we've already discussed that. Anybody else from council have questions, comments? Tim, you have any questions or comments?
No, I do not.
All right, I have Ms. Darcy DeVoe, discussion on ORR fees. You are recognized.
Darcy DeVoe, 20223 Travis Drive. Okay, I looked up the stuff today as well, and it says under austintexas.gov, it says the cost of requests expected to be $40. Staff members will estimate the letter of requester. The letter will include an itemized statement of any copy, personal mail, charges inquired, fulfilling, blah, blah, blah. So that's on the Austin, Texas. And then it goes down on personal time. It says computer programming, and it gives their fees. And it also says after the 50 pages, it's $15. This is the city of Austin, okay? This is their fees. City of Austin, $15. So then
So
it's...
they went with the Attorney General.
What?
They went with the Attorney General's thing.
Yes, they did. That's the city of Austin. We're a little city of Lago Vista. I would like to also say that when I put in for an ORR, and it's also supposed to, it's also supposed to notify the grantor or the person who's petitioning for the ORR when it becomes like it's going to become a cost. So they have the thing to say, oh, I'll back off, or oh, I'll keep going. Tell me how much it's going to be. That's also one of the things on this that you are supposed to give notification to the person. So somebody doesn't come in and all of a sudden it's going, you owe us $35,000 because you wanted 6 hours or 100 hours of our IT guy. Well, I didn't request your IT guy. I requested something from you that she should have gave up freely out of your emails. But now that it went to your IT guys because you guys denied it, I'm now paying $35.50 an hour, and I don't think that's correct that you should do that to people. I think you should tell them ahead of time when it starts getting to the IT people. And then I know I only have a minute left. So when I put in for my ORR, it went up to the city hall. It went to Sandra. I came in one day. Nobody was up there. The ladies in the office said, Sandra's not here. So I came back the next day. Sandra sent me just a few things. I think it's six attachments to my ORR. It went out to a few of you. I think Dick Weatherly's was saying, I don't have anything on this matter, which he should, because I sent out on December 1st a letter to all of you about the clearing. I sent it to all of you. So all of you should have sent that back to me, because that was an open RR and I wanted the emails. I wanted to make sure that you saw the emails. And so nobody complied to that. So secondly, we'll get into that, but this is all about the ORR. I'm saying that your fees are ridiculous. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we're only discussing the fees right now. We're not discussing the actual ORR request, so. All right, that is the only one I have signed up to address council. Is there anybody else who would like to? All right. Anything else from council?
All I'd like to say is, Darcy, I'm sorry I didn't send that back to you, but I figured you had that one. It was the only thing I had on my computer, and I figured you already
All right,
had it.
we're
You
not-
didn't
we're
need
not-
to send it back.
Hold up, we're not,
Mr. Mayor,
we're not discussing the open records request,
Okay.
just the fees. And we're moving on to discussion item number 11. Oh, as I was, stand by.
Yeah, he's here.
Dun-dun-dun, where's it at? We're going back to number 5. Put this over there. All right, agenda item number 5, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding resolution number 20-1838, a resolution by the City Council of the Lago Vista, Texas, by the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, accepting from Neffendorf, Doss and Company, PC, the audit for fiscal year 2018-2019. All right. I am not even going to really introduce this. I'm just going to let you go ahead and do your thing.
I think he's ready. I'm ready. Yes, sir. I know there's excitement.
Just wait.
Can't stand it. Riveting.
Thank you, sir.
It's good stuff. I'm the only one that actually enjoy this stuff.
Thank you.
And care about it. There's a highlights. I'll give you a book and highlights. It's getting bad. The Governmental Accounting Standards Boards keep piling this up. Pretty soon we're gonna have to put this thing out in volumes.
Thank you.
Does all this come with new requirements for lobbyist expenses and stuff?
Oh, yeah. That's all coming. Thank you. How you been? Doing all right?
Good, yep, you?
Another day in paradise, right?
That's where we live.
There you go.
Thank you.
You bet. There's the highlight.
Appreciate it.
This is the highlight of the year for us.
That's right. Should be. Here, 3 copies of that.
I'm not going to say I find it so much exciting, but I am glad to see it every year.
Correct. Okay, like you said, I'm Keith Neffendorf with Neffendorf and Knopp out of Fredericksburg. Actually, we'd like for the record noted that the name is wrong on the DOS is no longer there. We shortened it. Yeah. Receptionist got tired of saying that long term, so she said we have to get rid of one. Hey, come on. This stuff is dry. I've got to come up with something. Come on, people. Give me a little ounce here. All right, audit. For the year ended September 30th, 2019. The audit report is attached. It is a good audit. It is based on the applicable Government Accounting Auditing Standards Board standards and complies with of course, the local investment code and also the local government code. The audit itself is in the same format as it has been for the last several years. As you will see that we do 2 sets of financial statements for the governmental side
When I say 2 sets of financial statements, that's a requirement of the Governmental Accounting Standards Boards, where we show a set that's done on the business type model, and then we show a set of statements that's done on the fund financial statements. The difference there being the fund financial statements for the governmental side, that's what STAR keeps those records on. That's what you adopt the budget and set the tax rate on, okay? That's a key element here. Because remember, in the utility world, your golf course, your water and sewer, and now the new the airport fund we moved over there, that is a user-based. And whenever you have a user-based enterprise fund, that is already on the full accrual accounting. So that's the difference. Governmental, your general fund, your debt service fund, your capital projects, those are fund financial statements. And so when we convert those to the business type models, there has to be a reconciliation done. But anyway, the audit report itself is based in a similar format where we go through the statements. And the first 2 statements in the book, or the A1 and the B1, they're done on the GASB 34 model. The next part of the statements, the C schedules, are done on the fund financial statements. And then, of course, there's utility funds. What I've done for you, instead of having to confer to the book, which this is also a neat reference chart, though, because if you want, it gives you the exhibit and the page numbers. So if you want further details of what I'm talking about, then you can refer to these numbers and these pages. But before we get into any numbers, of course, pages 1 and 2, the opinion letter for the financial statements, and that is an unqualified opinion. And what does that mean to you? Well, it means that it's good, that your finances are in order, and we can issue an unqualified opinion on those financial statements. That's what every city strives for. That's what you got. After the opinion letter, where the exhibits start, as shown in this chart, the first exhibit is A1. And remember, this is the GASB 34 model statement, so it shows all your assets, including all your capital assets, depreciation, long-term debt. And you can see, as listed there, the total showing the comparison from the prior year to this year, the 9/30/19 year. And you can see overall the city's net position increased. You look down there at about halfway down the total net position line. Prior year, it was 57,470,458. And this year it's up to 61,024,122. So an increase about 3.5 million, another good operating year for the city. And the other thing I need to point out, as you all recall, you all have, due to the way the Governmental Accounting Standards Board requires the accounting, is you all have that negative unrestricted net position in the governmental activities. You issue debt that's tax supported. When you issue debt that's tax supported, that's a governmental activity. If that debt is used to do water and sewer improvements, that asset is recorded in the water and sewer or utility fund. What's going to happen? Water and sewer utility fund's going to show up real good. It just got a $5 million asset. What's going to happen on the governmental side? Looks bad. It's got a $5 million liability. Did any money really change hands? No, it's just how it's accounted for. In the GASB's eyes, the Governmental Accounting Standard Boards, that's how they want to show it. Debt supported by taxes is all shown as governmental activity. And it is perfectly legal, and it's done across the state. And in fact, with the new legislation for school districts and the fact that they're limiting or trying to put limits on the property taxes, most of your schools are going to now issue more debt that really is maintenance and operations type stuff simply because they can log it on to a debt service tax. That's my last political statement. We'll go right back to the financial statements. Anyway, that's what I wanted you all to understand, though. That's the reason why you have a negative unrestricted. It's a key element here. That's why you have a negative unrestricted balance in the government activities is for that fact. You're issuing debt with taxes, and even though they might be used to finance utility fund improvements, okay? But overall, when you look, that's why when you look in here at 18 and 19, we're not separating these out. We're giving you the totals. That's why it's a better read as to your true net position that increased by 3.5 million, okay? And the same way on Exhibit B1, pages 11 through 14, you can see your revenues and expenses and your net income was similar to the prior year. You had the $3,553,664 profit in 19 and 3.8 million in 17. And of course, in 17, the prior period adjustment was due to the, we had to book the OPEB liability under GASB 75. That was for the TMRS and the retiree death, supplemental death benefits fund. C1 exhibit pages 15 and 16, your fund financial statement. The highlighted information is shown there. Your general fund at the end of the year, $4,865,703, increase about $500,000. Capital projects, your other funds, your debt service, special revenue funds, so your total governmental fund balances increased from 9.5 to 10,955,870, increase about 1.4 million. Actually, it's shown right next on the next column, Exhibit C3, pages 18 and 19, shows your net changes for those funds. The general fund had an increase of 512,415. Capital projects and other funds, your total change increase for the governmental funds, 1,382,022. So the governmental funds all are in good financial shape. So you can see your fund financial statements with your overall $10 million, 955,870 fund balance. And of course, the general fund, of course, is in good with 4,865,703. The next page shows the items that we feel that we need to make a comment upon in the notes. And those are Note 3A, deposits, investments, all complied with the Public Funds Investment Act. And notes H, I, and J, you made all your payments in accordance with the debt service requirements. Then you have Note L that has the GASB 68 with your retirement disclosure. Note M is the GASB 75 OPEB disclosure. Note R is the negative unrestricted net position, which you can see, even though it's a negative unrestricted net position, it dropped from negative 27 million to a negative 24. So that's a good, you had about a $3 million increase, and that reduced that negative unrestricted net position. Your general fund, page 50, comparison to the budget, you had positive variance to the budget. And those exhibits listed there for the GASB 68 district share of the percentage funded of the retirement shows your liability at the end of 19 was increased to $1,359,218, which was percent funded was 87.82%. And you can see the prior year, the liability was only 261,179, was 97.41% funded. So remember this, you ask, why is that? Why did y'all's liability for retirement jump over $1 million in 1 year? Remember this, in the governmental world, on GASB 68, those actuarial valuations are even further behind than the accountants, believe it or not. These are based on a actuarial valuation of 12/31/17. And therefore, what report year is this? Their investment reporting was year 18, calendar year 18. What happened in 18? The market didn't do very good. It's 19 it came back. Everybody, I can tell you this across the board, in all cities, those liabilities for the retirement system jumped substantially because the TMRS suffered investment loss. And that's why that liability jumped. It's part of the formula, and that was across the board. Now, hopefully, when the numbers come out, they should be coming out in June or July for this year, that's going to go back. Your liability is going to go back down because 19 should have been a much better investment year. But
And then
we'll
we
see.
get to wait to see what the coronavirus
Right,
does.
exactly.
and-
That might all go to back down. But anyway, what you need to do, what I tell people all the time, because this is not something that you should be concerned of at one point in time. It's more like a trend you should look at. So if you go to those statements, they're starting on page 51 through 53. You can see that we're accumulating a 5-year data now, and eventually it'll be a 10-year build out that they require us to do. So I tell people all the time, boards, commissions, city councils that we do work with, the best thing to do is just monitor this thing and make sure that over the period of time that it's not, and you can see it's running 90+%. It's just dropped down to 87.82 this year because of that investment loss. And that line item's easy to see up. I'll show it to you. You can look at under total, item B, total fiduciary net position, third line down there, net investment income. C for plan year 2018, so negative $293,885. Look at plan year 17, it was a positive $1,166,000. That's what I'm talking about. That's why all the liabilities for these cities in that year really took a big hit. But hopefully, like I said, we come back and we'll see what happens at 20 with the coronavirus. But anyway, that's all I want you to point out is that as long as you're staying in the 85+% funded category like you are, then you should be in good shape. Okay. And the rest of the items, I think we've already gone over. Of course, in the back, we always have our letters for recommendation. And that just says that we have audited the financial statements of the city of Lago Vista as of for the year ended September 30, 2019. And in accordance with the government audit standings, we provide the following items to you, the city council, as listed in this letter. Of course, there's no received audit findings. We have adopted all the GASBs and included them in your financial reports. There were no difficulties encountered performing the audit and no other matters that needed to be discussed or disclosed of a material nature. But then, as always, we list at the bottom there our current year recommendations having to do with the purchase policy and documentation on the reimbursement requests and the use of city credit cards. Policy and procedure be adopted there. And then there were some prior year policies also with payroll concerning the use of monies given to police officers for uniform allowance, and then also the gifting for employees for Christmas gifts. And then finally, in the pro shop inventory, there were some items there that we checked that were out of not in accordance with the counts and the cost, and we recommend that those be reviewed and corrected so the inventory is closer to actual. And then the prior year, we had reconciliation on the bank reconciliation, investment policy, payroll benefit deductions, and those items, and some of those have been addressed and some of them are being worked on. Like I say, these are not material items, but they are items that the city needs to look at and address. If you have any questions on any of them, I'd be happy to answer them. Or anything with the due to audit or the financial statements. We always appreciate the cooperation of STAR and the accounting staff and Josh and the city manager and the city secretary and all the departments we work with. These things are a culmination of that whole process. There's a lot of documents here. We look at a lot of documents. They do a good job of getting us the information that we need to do the audit. And trust me, that's always a good thing. It's much easier when you have a people you work with are helpful and try to get you the stuff that you need. And the airport, last year we moved the airport as an enterprise fund. We talked about that previous year. And so under the enterprise fund accounting, it made a $6,000 profit. So it does qualify as enterprise for profit.
Appreciate you, Tim. Questions, comments? Tim, questions, comments?
Yeah, I'd like to get a copy if he's leaving enough for everybody.
Sorry you had to be here.
Well,
You want me to
make one
read it
up.
to you? You want me to go? I can read it to you. I'd be glad to.
Hit the power button, Sandra.
About 10:30 when it's nap time, so.
Mayor, what we will do is, if approved by council, we will put the version online. We have the hard copy available. It'll be made available here at City Hall and at the library. So if someone wants to come in and review it, there, then it can be reviewed, but it'll be on the website for review.
Will it include this little shortened version as well?
We can include this on the scanned version online, and it'll stay inside of the hard document that we put at both facilities. Yes, sir.
I can only see me. The audience is frozen on mine. I can only see me. The audience is frozen on mine.
He's not talking to us.
No, they're just moving real slow.
Yeah.
They're not really frozen.
They all just finally woke up after that.
All right.
This was helpful.
Yes, thank you.
If there's nothing else from council, is there any questions, comments from the audience? All right, at this point, I will accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the audit that has been presented to us regarding resolution number 20-1838.
I second.
And I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the resolution passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
All right. What number am I on? I forgot what number I'm on.
Good luck, thank you all.
11.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Scratch out number 10.
Words of encouragement.
All right, so we return to discussion items. Everybody good?
Yep.
Yeah, nobody needs a break? Okay. We return to discussion items to go into number 11, discussion regarding the development of a recycling center at Town Square. Again, this is just a discussion item. So number 11, council has directed staff to review the property located within the Town Square complex surrounding the police department for the potential location of a recycling center. Staff has reviewed the site, completed the survey, and provided a proposed plan for this property. And this plan is a overview master plan. It's quite inclusive. The plan includes the following: the extension of Bonanza Street from Thunderbird to Municipal Way, expansion of the footprint for the police department, addition of the recycling center services to include green center services, parking and facilities for BOPATE, recycling, trash, and metal collection. It also has a helipad location and public works operation facilities. And it's not listed on here, but there's always options for other choices. Staff is seeking direction from council on how council wishes to proceed with this property. The proposal included in the packet has a budget estimate for creating each item within the proposal. Some items in this proposal may have funding available to assist with the development. But again, this is just for discussion at this time, so we will not be given any direction tonight.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Where you see in the map, you see trash, you see four different buildings. Those are actual buildings, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, with these products, the BOPATE, the recycling, the trash, a lot of the TCEQ requirements require that they have catchments and containments, and so they will all be in enclosed buildings.
Enclosed buildings, okay. And you mentioned the street.
No.
The street that you're talking about is just on the side there, connecting to that undeveloped road. Okay.
Yes.
But it is important to know that there is going to be a bus barn
on that other part.
Well, potentially.
Potentially.
The bond has to pass first.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Based on Proposition B,
B.
that's the bus barn facility that potentially, if passed, would go into that property. Yeah,
It would be to the right, kind of see where that,
See where that
I'm not
wooded
sure
area
exactly
is?
where the school district wants it, but you talking about the
Right here.
road
No,
or are you talking
no.
about the bus barn?
Oh, wait, the bus barn.
right here, Darcy. This section in here.
Here, let me hold this.
And that they own that still has trees.
Yeah, this section.
That's gonna be the bus barn.
But again, that's a bond election, that school board, you know, it's hypothetical at this point.
Yeah.
But yes, that road, because there is a deeded road already there. So there's existing road. It's not physically existing, but it's a deeded road easement through there. So that road would potentially run to Municipal Way anyway. What this plan shows is kind of directing it a little bit to the south so that it would tie in with Bonanza.
Correct.
So it's just a little bit of adjustment of an existing road easement. Where's my list? I'm looking for something, so keep asking questions. Yeah, I have one that's marked up though. Hello?
Poor connection is trying to reconnect.
Well, where'd I put it?
While you're looking, Mayor, can I ask a question about the?
Yes, please.
The helipad, that's where it exists right now, isn't it? What's shown right here?
Yes.
And so the intention is to keep it? Okay.
Correct. And so, Mayor, this is one of those items, everything that's on this map is the design laid out by staff, presented back to council. As the mayor pointed out, at any point, if the desire is that we maintain a helicopter landing area in this location, then that's the location where it would exist now. These conversations and the dialogue occurred, I believe, around 16, 17. Is that correct, Chief? So about that time. And so we have adopted that area as just the place that, should we develop this out greater and working with our helicopter operators, that this would be how we do that location. I know council's had discussion too about, do we need a spot? For us, it just seems like the good area based on visibility and no power lines.
Well, my question would be, if it turns out that the bus barn goes in where it's supposedly going to be built, it's going to be along this same roadway here that's shown where the helipad is at the top. So isn't it entirely possible that we might at some point consider connecting that to Municipal Way? And so if that's part of the road there, then it would kind of interfere with, the helipad would interfere with that construction.
Mayor, so the way the roadway would go, it's not the actual beaten path that you see through the square that says helipad and then diagonal. What it would go is Municipal Way coming down beside the helipad, and then it would connect into Bonanza, as the mayor said. Then Bonanza would go along the back of the property and then connect into the roadway that, if constructed, would connect back to Loman Ford.
Okay.
So it would go up and around. So
Around it, okay.
the roadway would go around the property.
Yeah, it wouldn't go through it.
If this is developed, that's how that road would go.
Right. That just looks like, when you look at the map, it looks like the base for a road being there. And so, I was thinking that might be the way that it would be extended. If we actually take that action and extend the road.
Yes, Don.
I'm kind of under the feeling that when we first discussed this at the retreat back in November, that we had staff looking at this for a presentation and possibility, but I would say, took one step too far and clear cut it. We've had a lot of explanations for why we probably shouldn't be putting this here. and now we're investing in our city hall and our library. I think all the time we waste discussing this is kind of wasted because I think it's a terrible idea altogether to put it there. The Green Center as it stands, not overwhelming, overrun. It's got some extra space there. And I've lived across the street from that, and it produces a lot of debris when they're mulching the cedars. So at a bare minimum, that's a terrible idea. Then you get into the dump things and the Bopate, and I just don't think that's anything we would want. Now that we're investing in our city hall and our town square, I think we should look at putting this on the outskirts of town somewhere instead of pursuing this any further.
Okay.
Well, there's
there's
one other point of discussion, though. When you talk about the existing Green Center, there is a problem getting in and out of that Green Center. And I think this is one of the things that was discussed as a way to mitigate that problem, because it is a traffic issue when you're trying to get into the Green Center, as the one that exists now near the school.
But rather than moving it to downtown, we could put in a turn lane or have PD there on the days that we are having big dump days.
Or
for
maybe route the
simpler solutions than.
maybe reroute the way in and out, but this was just an idea about how to deal with a larger Green Center, having more ability to actually recycle, that sort of thing. So I think that's the reason why we brought that up as
If you've looked at our existing piece of property, I feel like it could end up being a drive-through or operational from two sides piece of property instead of in and out through one gate.
Not if you're trying to put 4 buildings that have different facilities listed.
He's talking about the existing
Yeah,
one.
the actual just tree mulching Green
Yeah.
Center,
It's
that's
fine.
one thing. But if we wanted to try and put the other 4 buildings with the trash, recyclables, Bopate, there's no way all that would fit on that piece
But
of
it
property.
seemed like a logical next step to maybe acquire property beside that. No one wants to live beside the 7 a.m. churning of cedar trees. It's
Or maybe we should consider a combination of retaining the mulching aspect of it at the current Green Center and then making this strictly a recycling center.
Yeah, that's a possibility as well.
What's the reasoning behind putting the recycling center in the middle of what could be a dog park or a ballpark or something that draws people into downtown for other than dumping purposes? I mean, why are we pushing so hard to get to this?
I'm not pushing, I'm just
No,
saying
I'm,
that that's.
I'm not saying you are, but we've got a clear-cut piece of property that we didn't really decide to clear-cut yet, and now we've got an expanding project that's.
The only thing that I would say in response to that is, when we've done recycling in the past, it's been right out here in our parking area. And so this is just a location that's near the place where we've done it before.
Yeah, or the swimming pool parking lot. But, so, the reason is we're trying to find a piece of land that was large enough. This is like the only piece of property that the city has, other than way out, Cedar Breaks. We don't have a piece of property large enough where we can consolidate services all in one spot. So for efficiency of consolidation and stuff, this is why this piece of property was considered, because we could combine several things, put it in one central location.
Do you still feel like this piece of property is a good idea, Mr. Mayor?
I do, yes.
We own 68 lots in the POA that we could probably, I think we own 280-something different lots in the city. It seems like we could.
Yeah, but I don't think any of them are big enough to handle
And many of them are
any
not
of this.
anything you could put anything on.
You need to go visit like Lakeway's recycle center that has everything right there in the same facility,
Right next to the high school.
right next to the high school.
But I agree with you, I don't think they do a whole lot of mulching in Lakeway. So that aspect of it is bother.
One of
But
the,
yeah, I'm sorry.
excuse me, one of the aspects that we're also looking at with this is an expansion of the police department, which is something that's going to happen eventually, which is going to move back into this space. And we really need someplace where our public works departments can have a place to put equipment, supplies, and get it inside a fenced area where things are not exposed to the weather, exposed to the
I don't think
possible
that
scum.
need has been demonstrated yet. I haven't seen it. That's a
Well,
big
if you go
facility.
down and you look at the facilities that are being put in, down where they're at now, they're exceeding the space that they have. They've got a lot of things they're having to store outside that really should be put in a better place and a better facility. And we've got stuff scattered all over town. We've got pipe, equipment, and
Well, I know a lot of times we got stuff that sit in the median for 6 months because we got no place to store it.
no place to put it.
Cedar breaks.
So, when I'm looking at this, the helipad, I know that's been a request, but in my personal opinion, I don't think we need a helipad there.
Okay.
I've worked with Starflight for 25 years. They'll land that thing anywhere. The only thing I could think we might need a helipad for would be a transfer. But again, if an ambulance is transferring to a helicopter, they're still going to set that helicopter down wherever. Anything else, I think, is going to be pre-planned. And I don't see why, if it's a pre-planned landing, why that cannot occur at the airport. I don't know, I mean, staff may say different at some point. Danny may have a different opinion on that at some point moving forward, but in my personal opinion, I just don't think we need a helipad there. So we could eliminate that from this plan. The mulching, I do have some concerns about the brush drop off and mulching, just because of the dust and stuff that it would produce. So I would like to, moving forward, like to see if there's anything. And if this site here, if we were going to go forward with this site, what would be done to make sure that, I don't know how we would mitigate the dust. I don't know if that's contained somehow or not. I really don't see how that's possible, but I don't know. I would have to see something different. But as far as the other portions of what we are now calling the entire Green Center, I know right now Green Center means that little where we do the cedar chopping, but if we look at it as a more all-encompassing Green Center, the trash, the recyclables, the metal collection, the BOPATE, we have a huge problem with illegal dumping, and we don't have anything close where people can take anything. And this has been, as you see by our annual twice-a-year trash offs and the household hazardous waste collection, the two that we did last year, these are a huge demand in our community. And being that they are enclosed, they have TCEQ requirements for catchments and containments and everything. I have no problem with those collections being in this area. The police department by existing plans, that building is going to be expanding to the east, so the parking lot will have to be pushed out to allow for the future expansion of the police department. So we know that's already something that's in the original plan. The Public Works, I would like more information on the Public Works portion of it. I mean, is this just going to be something that we're storing pipe and equipment, or are we looking to move the offices of Public Works to this area, and this is just gonna be office space, and where they're at now, we turn into more storage. So I don't know about the Public Works portion of it.
Mayor, I like the idea of that building being there for Public Works because I think anytime that we get our operations more centrally located, closer to City Hall, I think it's a whole lot easier to communicate with our Public Works Director and his staff if they're closer at hand. And also, I think that we talked about being able to provide more parking for the police department and having a place where they could possibly take some of the vehicles that they take in and have a place to store them. Also, I think if we were to look at this more as a recycling center, as a green center, all the other things that are encompassed in this drawing that I see, I think are pretty amenable to me. My only real objection would be to the mulching and taking the brush to do the mulching, taking it in that spot. I think that would be more amenable to most people if we kept it a clean place, a place where we store vehicles and things of that nature, and provided more parking, providing office space for Public Works, providing the places where we can do the recycling would be, I think, more amenable. That's my view.
Yeah, and right now, I think we're collecting brush, what, twice a month? You know, so, yes, we would have these buildings there for the collection of these materials, but this is not something that would be open every day. It would be open maybe one day a week, maybe, or it might, 2 weeks out of the month, it's open during the weekday, and then 2 weeks out of the month, it's open on the weekend. So of about four days of actually being open for people to drop off materials. So there wouldn't be like people coming through every day dropping stuff off. It would be on a limited basis. And I've already have a gentleman that's volunteered to go along with his trailer and clean up all of our cul-de-sacs and illegal dumping sites. He's already stepped forward. He's waiting to so. Oh, we see him on Facebook all the time. Yeah. No, well, he wanted to. He said he would pick up all the stuff in the illegal dump sites if we didn't charge him. But if you're a citizen, it's not a charge anyway. So for right now, I'll put that in there.
Mayor and Council, if I may, just wanted to throw a couple of pieces of information over there for your discussion. I did want to mention something that was omitted from the costs here was the PD expansion. That was there was a cost that we couldn't figure out in the short amount of time. So all the costs you see on there does not include the PD expansion. The other thing I do want to mention as far as the current Green Center, something for you to consider is whenever the Green Center was placed there, if I'm not mistaken, that's zoned R1, the zoned residential. So you got kind of a commercial type of activity in a residentially zoned area. Something for you guys to consider. If you do decide to leave it there, maybe it's a possibility to rezone that and look back at that situation. I do want to go back to the Public Works yard, and perhaps some of the people that have been here for a long time and know the history. This property originally was purchased mainly for a couple of intentions, obviously the expansion of the PD facility and a public works operations or a laydown yard. The current facility where we're at is a plant. Originally, it was built as a utility district, was meant for a 10-man operation. It's a plant, it's a water plant and a sewer plant site. So being a public works, we have to leave the gate open. We have people coming in and out, and it's just, first, the security of it is a concern, is extremely tight. we're leaving equipment out. We don't want half $500,000 pieces of equipment just sitting out and moving them, leave the mower out by the airport because I got nowhere to put it. Finally, we make some space behind the barn and we push the mower there and we push a lay-down machine right next to it. And it is incredibly inefficient. Ideally, we'd have, a 5, 10 acre piece of property, but we can say, well, there's a 10 acre piece of property halfway to Marble Falls. It is inefficient to do that. Yeah, there's plenty of cheap property out there. It just doesn't effectively work that way. Ideally, we'd love a lot more space than what's shown here, but we'll take what we got and whatever we can get. I just want you guys, any questions that you have, I'll try to answer them the best I can.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let's see, I think some of y'all have seen this. I've got a list from Frank. He's not here, but he did put some questions together. Some of this we've already discussed. Location of the Green Center. I believe he's talking about the mulching portion of it. Why do we need a new Green Center? I think he's just discussing, I don't know for sure, but I think he's just talking about the mulching portion.
Yeah, he was just talking about the mulching.
Thoroughfare plan, we talked about the streets, the Bonanza Municipal Complex Way. Josh, if you would you mind discussing the thought pattern?
Yes, sir.
And not just that deeded road, but for the traffic flow purposes of something like this?
So there's two things here, Mayor, that come into play. One is Municipal Way being the entrance that comes in between the police department and the POA facility off of Don, and then comes beside the library. Then Bonanza is the road you pointed out earlier coming in. One of the questions that Councilor Robbins asked was, has the council seen this? No, what we're doing now is we're working with the property owner to see if we can get an offer that we can present to council to purchase so that you can have Bonanza extended. Because even though that's been included in plans and discussions, the city doesn't own that property. So we would need to acquire the property to connect Bonanza to flow through. What you would see at that point, and we have a property owner is interested in this transaction. So that will come to council for consideration very soon. What you'll see is, you'll see the convergence of Municipal Way and Bonanza into maybe a roundabout or a stop sign intersection that will create flow of traffic that could go from Dawn over to Thunderbird and vice versa. If there's a larger connection made over to Loman Ford in the future, then that could happen at a later date.
All right.
Looking at the property on Travis Cad and the Green Center as it stands, there are no houses built very close to it. There's a couple across the street, but we do have vacant property that's going to be on a noisy highway that would probably be less expensive than this right in our town square. And you could expand that facility at that location. And if you can move anything, I feel like we could do some rearranging at Eric's current facility over there. I've seen a lot of extra space, in my opinion, that could be cleaned up and utilized more efficiently for the things that need to be locked up.
Mayor, there is a house located right next to the Green Center on that side. So if you drive by there and look at it, there is a house right next to the current Green Center and not the recycling center here. And there are the houses adjacent to it. So it goes back to kind of one of the facts that Eric's talking about. The zoning for that facility is currently incorrect. That can be fixed. Kind of like what Councilor Barthelow's saying. There are things you can do similar to what's on this plan here on that site to create better buffers around the property. Mayor, you mentioned it earlier, but look at the block wall that the PD has on the Dawn side. That wall can be extended, and then the treescape, you want to develop a treescape of the trees that actually not only create a better, mitigate any type of impact, but that create a better aesthetic look that goes through there on the other side of the wall. So those just things to look at too on this design.
Okay. Let's see, he's got water and sewer line extensions with that. We've got all that in that area, right?
Mayor, you have that, the utilities to the site you have listed, and part of this upsizing, one of the things you always want to do is if you know that something's going to develop, you want to upsize the lines. And so if we knew of additional development that was going to happen, we have had dialogues with these property owners around here, including the schools and including the gentleman that owns the property directly behind this city property. We haven't seen anything happen on those lots, but you would always want to upsize lines if there is additional development that could occur, so you're not digging it back up again.
Josh, I have one very general question. Do we have any idea what it would cost us to develop this property in the way that we're talking?
Mayor, in the way that it's presented, so you have, including the helipad and everything that's on here, minus the police department expansion of that asphalt area and extended of some parking, that's listed on here at $630,000. If you add the public works operations, in any of this, you would phase out. Whatever the phases are, you would pick 3 phases and say, this is how we're going to do it. Then the public works facilities, that's a $2.7 million project. And then if you're going to extend Bonanza past the right of way there, you have an additional $290,000. I would say if you just ballpark the police, looking at 2 areas. So want to make this very clear. This project is not driven by a police expansion at this time. So the police department has a very strong facility. What they did, though, during their construction is they created covered parking, and that covered parking area is the area that would be extended to create additional office space. So the design for the police department was fantastic. What you would end up doing is you would enclose that area, and then you would expand the footprint of the police department and then create covered parking off of a different level. Because same kind of thing, your vehicles take an impact of being parked outside. So if you can create that covered parking, the covered parking in itself along a whole row, that could be anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000, $90,000. The additional fencing off the back, that can be significant in cost. And then the parking and the asphalt, not as expensive, just depending on the size and the overall footprint. So look at this number and say, total project here could be $3 to $4 million based on estimates of what we would do in that area.
And total timing of this project?
You mean in terms of total construction?
Yeah.
If you were to say, hey, we get all after it?
Yeah, because this to me seems to be larger than a year period of time.
So if you did it all in one phase, look at the type of buildings you would do for Bopate. That's going to be a metal building. It's going to have ventilation. It's going to have some items on the inside per requirements. But look at it similar to the type of construction you're going to have for the library. You won't have the siding on these facilities that you would have on the library or the build-out options. But those 2 things with a small footprint are estimated at 10 months with the contract that we have now that we're working forward. So I would go back to what you're saying and say a year is a reasonable time frame. But it goes back to, as we've said, there are funding opportunities, and we wouldn't want to miss out on a funding opportunity and say we're just pushing through. So you may phase, potentially, let's say you phase part of the Bopate because we're able to receive $86,000 one year and $86,000 the next or 2 years out.
Right.
We'd still want to phase certain parts of it so that we're not missing out on the funding.
Okay.
It's a bigger picture type of plan, and that's why it's laid out in that way.
I understand the funding on the Green Center part, but as far as the building of a public works facility, we're looking at that within the same year?
I would say, again, you're probably going to have 2 separate contractors on that phase of it because that building is a little different than the other in terms of functionality. You're going to have to go through a design and look at how you're going to develop that building out. But if you have a separate contractor on that, I'd say that's still a full year. You're not going to be able to rush a construction on it.
Not.
And so positioning, placement, foundations, asphalt, I still think a year for that aspect. If one contractor was doing it all, you could looking at a year and a half, 2 years.
Gotcha.
Well, and I personally don't see this as just one giant
No, I don't either.
project. It would be phased, it would be, so I would say it's something we look in at budget time like we do at all of our other capital improvement projects. And we decide, next year, do we want to do a phase one and
Well, I gotta believe it would fit under the strategic plan
Yes,
that we're doing.
yes.
Also,
So, this might be something that's not even pursued until FY '21.
Right.
Depending on what we want to, how we want to phase it and what we can afford and what we can get funded. I know the one in Lakeway, TCEQ and Capcom gave them $250,000. So if we can tap into that funding, and that goes out every odd year, 17, 19, 21. So 2021 may be the earliest we're actually looking at something for.
Well, on the recycling center, we can tap into different monies. Yes.
Right.
On the public works, that we're not gonna be able to tap into certain funding, so it's gonna have to come from.
Right, yeah, and I'm going to a thing with Capcog next week, Texas Department of Agriculture, and their community development block grants.
Right.
I don't know, it's something, our area gets something like $1.3 million or something like that, so I'm wanting to know what's available, from the Texas Department of Agriculture that we can tap into, so.
Mayor, one of the requests, so there's the bigger project that's being discussed now, and then secondary, because it's not a timed out, not a deadline of this is when the plan is potentially for Public Works to use some portion of the property as a laydown yard, so that, as you mentioned, or somebody mentioned, we don't have pipe laying throughout the community. Storage of the supplies for projects doesn't need to be out on the road for 6 and 8 months at a time. And so one of the things is being able to store materials is one of those requests that we have on the staff side.
Mayor and Council, one of the immediate requests or one of the immediate needs we have is if you guys go look up at the end of, on top of Travis Drive, there's a whole bunch of pipe and things like that are left over. We have no place to put it. Over at the water and sewer plant, we have a sewer plant expansion. The contractor's taking up half of that site. And some of you guys that do golf, you'll see pipe outside of that.
Right.
Very ugly
See it all
site,
the
and you don't
time.
want to have water pipe next to a sewer plant. It just doesn't, it's safe, but it just doesn't sound right.
The city owns lots up at the airport that's in a light industrial area that could store all of that stuff. We clear the brush out, do what you did back here, and you'd have all the room you need up there on lots that we bought to expand an airport that we've now expanded in the other direction.
That's definitely a good option. It's just not an efficient way to operate. We need something a little bit more centralized. We can certainly do that, just not going to be an efficient system.
So the future of our community, Eric, is we've got 2,200 homes going in Lakeside at Tessera, right? That's the same, that's as many houses as exist in Old Lago. So our center is not here. This is going to be a little bit off the beaten path for everyone over there. So the center has truly been evaluated to be Bronco Lane up near the Dollar General. So if you're trying to get centralized, you can have projects going in every direction.
The difference for the pipe and the material is Lakeside is a new community, and typically you do not see us out there doing significant number of repairs on the new lines that they're developing in Lakeside. The older community is where you see the issues, just like today when we find on Tallahassee, our crews discovered one of the largest water leaks that we've had in the history of this city, and that's right here. They responded, they fixed this, and that's a big deal right here. So I agree with you that there's this future of the city, the center is different. That's why we talked about Lago Vista Village being a different center. That was pitched. The community said, maybe that's not a good idea. That's not the center of the city. So for the infrastructure of the center is where the majority of the projects occur, and that's in this vicinity. It's just operational.
Mayor and council, in the interim, we're just asking for an interim period. We're not asking, you don't have to make that decision on what you want to do on a permanent basis. This is something we need immediately. And if council in the future decides this is not what we want, we'll find another place and we'll move it elsewhere. But it's just something we need, something portable that we can move.
But don't get your hopes up, because we're just discussing it right now. We're not taking action
$4 million,
tonight.
we're gonna move it?
Right.
I think we just hired a strategic planner, and discussing this right now seems silly. Aren't we gonna have we just spent $72,000 for someone to tell us a better way to do it?
Right. The council, I was referring to the materials, so we can move the temporary materials. I'm not referring to permanent structures or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying that this is not something that's gonna be happening right now with the strategic planning group coming in. This is all something that's gonna be looked at as we go forward into,
It's a discussion item on this agenda. I'd like it removed from the next agenda so we don't have to have people come up here defending themselves against a plan that seems pretty well baked already. Do you want to keep
Well,
it on the agenda? If it's not an action item now,
but if it's something that we want to discuss, I'm going to put it on the agenda. Now, whether the citizens choose to come out and speak at that time, that's up to them. But if it's something that I think council should be discussing and considering, I'm going to put it on the agenda. Now, whether I do it next week or next meeting or not, I don't know yet. But at some point, we are going to discuss this again going forward.
right.
All right, so some more of Frank's questions here. He asked, how big is the Lakeway recycling site? If any of y'all, I put this out there at one point,
It's a good
a
size.
long time ago. Lakeway has a facility very similar to this. It's right across the street from Hudson Bend Middle School, 3207 Neidhart Drive. It's about I would say it's about a 3-acre facility that's used for nothing but the recycling, BOPATE and trash collection and stuff like that. But you can, if you look at that facility, you can see how the layout is and the buildings and stuff. But it's about a 3-acre plot, and it is directly across the street from a school. And let's see. Alternative locations, I think we have discussed that some already. We will continue to look at alternative locations, I'm sure. Frank has on here, community center, rec center. That is something that we have discussed as well. Let's see, where's my other thing? You know, if we decide to get rid of the helo pad, if we decide not to do the mulching on this location, things can always be, tweaked so that we have room for some other facility that we would like, whether it be a community center, a rec center, a senior citizen center, dog park, it can always be tweaked, but, first we gotta decide if we do want something there, if not. And then we can look at alternatives. I mean, if we decide we don't want any of this there, then we have that whole piece of property for something else. I do have a question on the east side of, where it says employee parking, and then just south of that is the, kind of where the mulching is. It looks like there's 2 buildings. You see them? What are those 2? Are they just buildings for artistic value, or?
Definitely artistic. So the one larger building is an operational building, and then the smaller would be storage space for the equipment that would operate in and around there.
Okay, so that would, okay. But it's not necessarily part of public works. It's part of the operation of.
You got 2 sides, so you have 2 sides of the building, one that would provide functionality to one side and one to the other. That way you're creating the one building, one footprint, and then have operational. But again, that's the graphic just for the design idea, Mayor.
All right. We also, I know it's not on this, but since I'm talking about community center and rec center, you know, where we have a couple of acres, I don't know exactly how many acres, but if you go all the way down Dawn to the circle, where we tore down water treatment plant number 2, we also have that property available for rec center, community center, or dog park, or, that's also on Dawn Drive. Let's see, site plan. He mentions fence or wall. I think, Josh, you discussed that, the wall, the screening wall and the trees. I believe that is all really that we have. We've already discussed most of it. I think that's the only thing, I don't think I see anything different from Frank that we haven't already discussed. Any more questions, comments from council? Tim, have we answered all your questions?
You know, I'm thinking that there's some wilderness area out there by the airport. I'm wondering if we should look at that a little further for some of these items. There's nothing up there that would bother anybody, I think.
Yeah.
But take a look. I don't know what property we own up there. I don't
So
know
that-
where it's located. Only the few times I've driven up there, it's just been pretty desolate.
It might, you know, the light industrial area would have to see what, you know, utilities we have up there. Being how it is light industrial, these recycling buildings, these collection facilities could possibly go up there if we've got, you know, access to utilities where, you know, because there's going to be some operation that has to take place, so we'll have to have utilities and stuff. But as far as, you know, the citizen, whether they're hauling it to Dawn Drive or whether they're hauling up to the airport, it's not going to make that too much of a difference in that situation, because it's still better than driving to South Congress and Ben White and St. Elmo, wherever it is in South Austin, to take all your household hazardous waste now, or driving out past the airport for any solid waste. I know on these recycling and solid waste collection, I'm really pushing TCEQ and the county, because there's nothing within 50 miles of our location for citizens to take their stuff. So we have that one little solid waste dumpster right there at the Cedar Park city limits, right there off 1431. That's got the one roll off, but it doesn't, other than some bulk waste, that's all it takes, you know, and it's only open a couple of days. So I'm really pushing other entities to provide services out to this part of the county. But yeah, you know, Tim, I agree that there could be other locations, but we just gotta see if it's going to be efficient. You know, if in this location, everything is consolidated. You're not sending workers all over town. You're not having to store vehicles in different locations. The efficiency
Well, I would
of
agree
at
the
this.
public works would probably be centered there, but some of those other items that the people are concerned about could be located in a different area. But I have no problem with the central location for public works. It was the other green and recycled stuff, I guess.
Right. And I don't know, maybe somebody will step up and donate 10 acres of land to the city. No?
All they want is 30,000 an acre.
Yeah. All right, any other questions, comments? All right, I'm going to the citizens. I'm going to start with, I'm going to recognize Mr. Ron Smith.
Okay, Ron Smith, 20609 Oak Ridge. Okay, a couple of things. That red line that surrounds the Green Center, I believe that's a fence. Is that correct? After all, you want to have it enclosed, so it
Yes.
must be a fence.
Yes.
I don't see any cost estimates for a fence, probably looking at a couple $100,000 to fence that in. Secondly, I don't think we ought to consider anything other than maybe the helipad and the police parking. I think all the public works and any of the operation stuff can be found in other locations than this location. That's probably the only thing I would do there. The current green center that we have today, it's always been my vision that that green center would move over to Ming Trail. There's 29 acres over on Ming Trail. We also have a burn site capability besides chipping capability that we could put there. You could put public works there, I guess, if you wanted to. The reason for the Ming Trail site was we've already got water. The fire department knows about it. We use it for our trash off days. Cars can queue up for 3/4 to a mile and not disturb any traffic flow. You're going to have traffic flow disturbances every time you have a green center open. You're not going to be able to get the police cars out of there if you want to. So I say take the green center that you have today, move it over to Ming Trail. You don't need all 29 acres, but maybe you might need 3 or 4 acres. Might be able to get that. That's always been the dream.
But we don't own Ming Trail, and they're not willing to sell it.
Well, we had an opportunity. We've had opportunities for several years. We never acted on because we were doing other things. And that's, I guess, one point I really want to make here. We have time. This is not in the budget. We're going to go out and spend $630,000 plus fence. And yet we won't even do what's in the budget. I mean, like, where are the streets at, folks? Come on. I mean, we've been waiting years for streets, and yet we sit there and we talk about golf green improvements. We talk about green centers. This stuff's not even in the budget. You're going to make not unauthorized. You're going to make spin patterns coming out of your reserve plans to go do this kind of boondoggle stuff. This is not thought out. This is not ready for prime time. I say, don't do it. Don't do it. Get back and do what's in your budget. Don't worry about golf greens and green centers like this. Do your budget. Your budget's got $1.5 million in for roads. When are you going to do that?
Excuse me, we've been doing roads.
No, you haven't.
We have been
You have
focused on
done 5 roads. I've driven them. I saw the plan. I went down the plan and looked at them. The ones you did were the ones by the golf course. And you did it right before an election. Let's be clear.
Excuse me, don't raise your voice at me.
I'm okay. I won't raise my voice.
Please.
I'm still
Lower your
upset.
voice.
I'm still upset
Yeah,
that the next time you're going to do roads, it's going to be around the golf courses again. That's all you guys do is you do this spending on stuff we don't need, and you don't do the stuff you say you're going to do. Just do what you're going to do with the budget.
Again.
I'm done.
I'm ask you again. Thank you.
All right. At this point, I'll recognize Stan Miller.
I'm Stan Miller, 20908 Oak Ridge, and mine will not be as quite as volatile. I want to ask the city council to get a comprehensive plan for handling of hazardous waste. As you just mentioned, Mayor, right now we got to take our stuff all the way down by the Austin Bergstrom International Airport to properly handle hazardous waste. And as you mentioned also, I'm sure illegal dumping has been a real problem, especially with this kind of waste. And as our population increases, it's not going to get any better. So I just want the council to make sure that they do something to go and help us maintain a quality of life by doing something about hazardous waste. That's it.
Thank you. All right, the next group of people I have all signed up and said they'll give their time to Darcy. So Darcy, I'm giving you 15 minutes.
Darcy DeVoe, 20233 Travis Drive, number 12. First off, respectfully, again, I would like to request that you postpone this decision. I believe we have been disenfranchised from completely participating in the discussion due to the city's lack of compliance to the open records request, and I'm going to put that on record. And then I would like to start with, first off, it's hard to like point at something when you've got this big black screen up, so can someone put on a timer or something? Where these green trees now are, if you look, that's our end building that has 5 units in it. That parking garage area where they want to park the vehicles, which go beep, 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 starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, that's our bedrooms. Okay, that's my living room and that's my bedroom. That's her bedroom, that's her living room. That's 5 other people's bedrooms and living rooms, okay? Right there, right there. Okay, that's our first thing. Then I'm gonna ask you about the helipad. Have the FFA even been notified? Because there's a flying object and debris law that you can't have any flying object and debris anywhere near a helipad, okay? There's one thing, so get that on your list too to look up. That easement, I won't even go into that easement because you guys haven't even looked at your own documents, okay? That's the easement of the road. I'm telling you that right now. Second off, which area we don't own, which is now the road, this. Here, that little lot. That has over a quadplex going in right now. It looks like someone's happy cul-de-sac that they're planning on putting their kids in, and now you want a road there, okay? There's another thought. Here's one thought. I wish I could do PowerPoint, but I don't know how, and I'm gonna try to do this as fast as possible. This is where the Public Works sits right now. There's a lot right here. This is the guy who owns that lot. It is AQE Development, LLC. They're right out in Westlake Hills. Have you tried to buy that lot? It's huge, okay? It's huge. It's straight across from him, okay? There's one idea. Second, I'm sorry, I have so much to say. I was never informed. You can look on the Texas. I just pulled it up and I sent it to everybody in this room except for you. You are supposed to be informed of the charges actually beforehand of anything that's on the ORR that's going to cost me, okay? So I was never informed in that.
There
Second,
have been no charges, let's be
Okay,
clear.
I know.
You've been charged 0.
right, but it's not done yet.
And that's not on the agenda for this evening,
Okay,
Mr.
it's
Vo.
not done yet. The ORR has not been completed, okay? So I don't have all the records. Second, I have from Eric and Josh an email that was dated December 3rd from Eric to Josh. And it says, "Hi, Josh, see attached. I'll bring a hard copy." And you know what this is? This is this plan on December 3rd. They've had it since December 3rd, okay? This plan, if you look down in the little tiny paper on the other part of this, it says December 3rd. They've had it since December 3rd. They've waited until now, okay? That's another thing. On this, it says, "Can you create an update and propose new green center and site for me and bring it by 4 o'clock?" That's from Josh to Eric, okay? That's a hard copy. Here's the purchase order. I hope you gentlemen have looked at the ORR as yourselves because there's so much in here that it's unbelievable. Here's an ORR for the Green Center that's got some handwriting in on the official document. I don't know when this was written in on here, but it's for the CTX civil and contractors for clearing the land. And then there's some emails from CTX saying, "You want the land cleared? You know there are some like repercussions." Wait, see you there at 7:30. I need you guys to understand to understand the limits of removal, okay? That's talking about cutting all the trees down and what's gonna happen with the trees. And then CTX also put in for the permit on the 19th. That was before you guys were even told about this, okay? And then on this was 11/18, okay? This document here is 11/18. This is between Andy Lee, who owns CTX, and Victor Manzo. So now we want to pull Victor in here. We want to have him answer some questions as well because we never knew about Victor, okay? Second off, this was, BTM was another contractor that was up there. I have her business card. I talked to her on the land. There's no record of paying BTM, okay? I want to know where that record is. This is a partial payment to Andrew Lee, who owns CTX. It's only for part of it, and it shows the clearing of the land at 5.5 acres. Hold on, Josh, let's get to this part.
I was asking the mayor if this is
Okay.
the ORR, if this was this. That's what my question
Yeah,
was.
this is.
And I can explain Victor if we wanted to go into who
This is
Victor
all
is.
about the Green Center. This is all the clearing and everything. So 5.5 acres. I have an email from Josh stating that he didn't need TCEQ involved because it was under 5 acres. I just spoke with TCEQ. I made in December, I made a request for them to look into this matter. You were fined in January. And then your letter went up against a tree, January 9th, stating you were moving land. TCEQ finds you. I spoke with them. Their paperwork is coming to me. They mailed it out the other day, and it hasn't gotten to me yet, but I do have the email from, I believe her name's Mildred or something like that. Okay, on the CTX permit, they filed for a point source permit, which is supposed to be under 1 acre, so they already filed the wrong type of paperwork. And then one of the other things, this is some of just the first OR, it was only like 6 items, which you would be really interested in reading as well. I have something from Josh talking to the Lago Vista Beautiful, what is it? Keep Lago Vista Beautiful. Here's an email from Josh asking if Dan, Dennis, and Sheldon would like to come speak. This is December 5th on the matter about the Green Center. It's not even on the agenda yet, okay? This is only us complaining about it. He's already getting to the Lago Vista beautification people. Then I have an email from Frank talking to the Lago Vista beautification people and saying, hey, you need to be up with trees. I have that as well, that if you gentlemen would like to look at it. And then I have one back from Sheldon in January asking Josh about the Green Center topic. Is it up for agenda yet? And she says, I'm going to read the KLV statement, which guess what? There was no sound during that meeting, so we can't hear what she said. And then the statement on the topic at 6:30, sign in. I don't believe I can prior to council because it's up for discussion. And then she writes also, I thought I heard you mention that yesterday, so you've been privately speaking with this company or with the Keep Lago Vista Beautiful without other people or notes or anything being taken.
Those are public meetings.
What?
Those are public meetings.
Where's it at? Where was
KLVB
it?
meetings, they meet
Okay.
right here and they're public
Okay.
meetings.
Okay. And so then we also have like all the signatures that we had gotten when this first happened, and I'm sure those people would probably be backing us again. And then I have an email from
Darcy,
Josh.
hold on a second. It seems to me like all we're discussing is open record stuff. We're not
Well,
discussing the actual.
Yes, I want to get to that. This is all part of it because we just got all these open records the other day, so I haven't even had a chance. I had to lay these on my couch today just to shove them in to be able to come up with some type of time frame how this worked. And one of the things, you know, about this building and everything, the expense of it. I mean, it's like, come on, guys, if you add that all up plus the fence, that's over $5,000 or $5 million for right there. Plus the people that are living there now in that little cul-de-sac that they're building, this is right over here, behind here somewhere. You can walk out. You can even see trash right behind your building right here. Come on, gentlemen. You can see trash right behind your building that's been dumped and nobody's picked it up, okay? You can see you know why people dump? I'm gonna tell you, because they're criminals, okay? That's one of the things. People who are good citizens will take their stuff to the dump. You haven't put up any do not litter signs, no dumping, no cameras, no nothing anywhere in the city. But you're gonna put this in our front yard, not our backyards, gentlemen, our front yard. And now with the ISD wanting to put their thing in there, that means more of those trees now gone. So what is going to happen with all the rain? We're already getting flooding where we're at. We filmed it the other day when that big rainstorm came down. It's not trickling through the sediment. It's pushing the mulch. It's actually pushing it out of the way now. Okay, so it's not going under it, it's pushing it out of the way. And it's not that river that they show right there. The river that we have that comes through our property that's on the ISD is actually lower, almost where that fence line, the red fence line is. So nobody's even looked at this properly, okay? Nobody's even come to our property. Which one of you gentlemen have been on our property? Which one? You showed up there? Did you talk to any of us? You came onto our property, you were on the property next to us.
I was on the property with
You
Ms.
came,
Mummy.
okay. But none of you gentlemen asked to enter our property, correct?
No.
And none of you talked to us. What?
Public street in front of you.
It's a public street in front of us, but not on our property to come into our driveway. We even have it, like you can't drive in there. We have it. It's posted, you can't drive into our property. Okay, so if you came onto our property, I would take you onto our property. I would love you gentlemen to say, hey, Darcy, hey, Donna, hey, Nadine, we would like to see what you're talking about. We'd like to come down there on a little field trip. That would be fantastic, a nice little field trip. So you can see. The police department, it only has that sound wall, and it's not even facing ours, it's facing Dawn Drive, okay? Behind it is all fence, and it's also tiered. If you looked at the property, it's tiered because of rain runoff already. They've already, I'm assuming, having problems with it. That's a good slope right there. I would love to know how you're gonna make that property not slope and how you're gonna build it up. Second, they're already dumping stuff over in the corner of the building. They've already dropped a bunch of sand. That was one of the tickets that they got because they didn't have a silt fence up and they did not comply with how the stormwater was gonna run off. So that's in your ticket from TCEQ, okay? Already on this property. Another thing is, if the ISD goes in there and that's their road to get out, how are you gonna get them out of there? They're gonna have buses, they're gonna have, if they have to have a big tow truck tow anybody in, if that's one of their ins and outs, you're also gonna have to have the same thing, even if you're putting pipe in that yard, that's gonna be noisy, you're gonna have dust, you're gonna have, we paid $3,800 to get rid of rats because of this area. So I can only imagine what's going to happen if you want to put all this junk here with the rats, okay? As Arch was saying, well, that, could be here and the trees, and he doesn't see a problem with the public works being there. It is a problem. Nobody wants to hear that in the morning. Nobody. I don't want that in my front yard. If I'm your neighbor, if I was your daughter, if I was your wife, if I was your sister, would you want me and Donna and all our other residents to look at this? No one has even talked to the people on Bonanza yet. Where are they? No one's even talked to them about bringing the road that way. What do they think of it? I would love to know. So that's all I have to say, gentlemen. I would like you to table this till at least May 7th, at least May 7th for us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And that is all that I have signed up to speak. So is there any further discussion from council? All right, we will move into agenda item number 12, city manager reports.
Thanks, Mayor. Got a couple things. I started touching on earlier that we were able to locate a water line break today. This is kind of a big deal that I hope people can understand. This water line break, which we said was on Tallahassee, the section of the water line is roughly 2 feet in length, and our crews, based on the ability of Eric's team to receive the LCRA grant, you recall, for leak detection services, they found a leak that potentially has been there for over 20 years in our system and is potentially 1/3 of our overall loss. This water line looks like in terms of our numbers, and we'll see as the months progress, could be releasing 15 to 17 million gallons a month. Multiply that in the course of a year, that's over 200 million gallons in a year. That's a third of our overall production. We've been talking about loss and how the system is, it's been tested before and figured out these things. We have found something that potentially eliminates the need for us to build $20 million worth of water treatment plant expansions. It's a huge deal, and it goes back to our crews at Public Works and finding this. I hate that people aren't here to hear this, but we'll put it out there because this is a big find from our crews. And the guys that went and did this work today, I came and told the mayor afterwards, they don't even look at the magnitude of for them, they fixed a water line that broke and it was a leak over time. And then they go back out after taking a 30-minute break and they go back out and go do more work. This is a huge deal that has massive impacts moving forward. So the only other place I had to report would be at the beginning of the meeting, Mayor, and it didn't fit. So
how much you say per month?
Potentially 15 to 17 million gallons per month. And what happens is, you got to remember, we've talked about this in terms of the water or the soil and the rock, you can go down. And so you don't create sinkholes with our sublet base. If it's going down, you're creating an aquifer. And I said this today, this aquifer is leading back into the lake. So we're basically going 10, 20 feet deep and then creating this aquifer well system that channels its way back into the lake.
So we're cleaning the lake, right?
Yeah, we're keeping the lake higher. So we stopped putting water in there, the leak detection service. So we hired a couple different companies to come in and do the leak detection. And this company, the way that I saw it today, comes back into Eric and says, we found whatever I was gonna say the mother lode, but we found the issue. And I was describing to the mayor, you look at this small piece of pipe and how it deteriorates over time as water's flowing to it. It's the way the lake was created. And the same kind of mechanism, the more water makes it wider and wider, but there's so much pressure in that line that's how much water is coming out of it. And so what you're gonna see moving forward is people downline are going to have better pressure. Mm-hmm. Now, you're going to have some issues because you're going to have more pressure impact in other areas. But hopefully what we'll see significantly is the loss reports moving forward are dramatically changed. And the crews made the fix and got back out of it. So we'll give you those reports and show you that. But the leak detection companies are both still out there looking. They found a couple small things here and there, which we know those exist. Mm-hmm. This was just the big one. This is the one that we hope changes the
you have
makeup.
An address?
I don't have it specifically, but I know it was on Tallahassee.
Tallahassee's pretty short. I was wondering which end. Is it near the lake?
I don't know the spot, so let me not make something up. Eric can tell you the spot.
Right, it's on the south side. It's right on the corner of Tallahassee and Patriot. And on the surface, and nobody would ever guess that there was such a major leak underneath. Until they found it.
So I was looking at our monthly report, today, and we're processing how much per day? About 1 point.
It depends if it's raining or not, and it's usually varies between 1 million gallons to all the way up to 2 million gallons a day.
So potentially.
We're looking at about 400,000 gallons a day.
So this was anywhere from 40 to 20% of all our daily water.
For 25 years, probably.
It's over 1 billion gallons of water.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, that's significant.
It's mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling, and I'm telling you, when you see the reports, it matters because that's the research to have to find these places. I mean, that's the small things like this happen often, and when they're not found, this goes back to when you're at your house and you say, "Hey, I've got a water leak, but I can't find it because if I use 20,000 gallons of water in a month, you would see it." That's what we think. If it's enough to fill up a swimming pool. what happens in a lot of our soils in our subsurface material is it goes down, so you don't see the water coming up. And so for a residential property, they say, well, I didn't see the water, I didn't use it, but it went through the meter, just like it goes through the meter for the city, and the math you're saying is spot on. So we'll do the follow-up and present that back to council so you can see those numbers.
So Eric, I know it's his report, but I got to ask you a question. What kind of pipe was this?
This was what we call an AC pipe, and I want detail what that is, 'cause- Thank you, Ron.
So this was an old pipe.
Well, what we suspect happened, whenever this house was built at the corner, the pipe was installed a little too shallow. So probably during construction of this house, with all the loads going back and forth, they create a crack on the pipe that over time it widened to what we found. So then we estimate whenever this house was built back in the probably late 90s or mid 90s.
Wow, okay, but that's probably something it's an entire line that probably needs to be on our list to be replaced at some time, or is it not already?
Council, when you look at AC pipe, that's the vast majority of the old pipe that we have. So typically, unless this pipe gets impacted, it's good in the place where it is. Once you impact it, then there's some other rules, and TCEQ gets involved to try to replace this type of pipe, just because of the material that it is. So right now, we're concentrating mainly on what we call the old, either blue poly or the old class pipe. That's a PVC pipe. That's the one that we're concentrating on. Those are typically the smaller leaks. The thought generally is big leaks, you'll see it. That's obviously
not.
Obviously not. So.
Okay.
Point for us, Mayor, is it's a good find. It should strengthen our system now that we found that, and you'll see an impact on that. And as I said, monetarily, you'll see the impact moving forward. I also want to point out that you remember the flooding that we experienced in 2018 and the process we were going through with FEMA to try and recover some of those expenses based on the response that went through. Eric and his team were able to spearhead that process and recover $66,000 back from FEMA reimbursements. It's kind of interesting how FEMA comes in and they tell you you can do so many things, but then there's a regulation, which is good because you don't want people just claiming everything and getting large sums of money. So Eric worked with FEMA reps for about 6 months, and then we finally realized this check coming back in and for $66,000. So it's a good thing to see some of these things work because you put that time into it with federal regulation and you're able to make it happen. So it's good. And then last, one more point, Mayor, is we had the audit tonight. As we've done the last 2 years, Councilor Davila has encouraged us to get the RFP to go back out because we've had the same auditor for multiple years. Once again, Star has put together the RFP. Her and Sandra are going to get this together, and we'll go ahead and post that now that the audit's been delivered. And we're going to share that in multiple outlets to try and get some more proposals in. I think last year we ended up with 2 proposals, might have had a third, but I think it was 2. We'll put it back out. We'll get those in. We'll bring them to the council. You guys can select the audit firm moving forward. Last comment, school board looking at, I emailed this out to council, looking at April 22nd or April 29th for a joint meeting. It's just something we started last year. Want to get together with the school board. That's a Wednesday, 22nd and the 29th. Those are not multiples of 3. So I'm thinking the mayor's plus or minus good. Rest of you, we just have to check back with them. Superintendent's going to follow up with his board to confirm if there's one that's better. So if you're in or out of town, just let me know so we can bounce for the other.
What was that date?
The 22nd and 29th of April. It's Wednesdays a week apart.
So either or, it's not and.
Yeah, we'll
it's
pick
not 2
one.
meetings.
And that we would probably hold it at the Viking room again, the way that the setup works, and that would be an open meeting for everyone to attend.
Got it.
That's all I have, Mayor.
All right. Future meetings. Consider our schedule and items for future council meetings. I know our city manager will not be with us next meeting. I think we should just cancel the whole thing.
Tried that, but you guys said keep working, so.
But it's spring break, and we all have kids.
No, we don't.
I'm trying. In March?
No, it's in.
Okay.
You didn't talk about Lago.
Didn't, Mayor
I
gave
did.
it, he
I
gave the
mentioned
update
it.
at the beginning.
I piggybacked off of Mayor Pro Tem Weatherly's comments about the bike race, and I mentioned
We
I
definitely,
said concert. I didn't say live in Lago, but
I'd like to suggest something for the next council meeting. If we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it, right? So, Parks and Recs, we've met, and there are lots of questions and phases and numbers being thrown around for what we're going to be all in on that park. I'd kind of like to pump the brakes and see a presentation from Eric and whoever's deeply involved in that project, and see what exactly we're going to get out of phase one and phase two, and what we're going to spend, what we spent so far, challenges that we've had so far, and what we expect over the next 2 years out of that park.
and Mayor, we can do a park presentation. These documents are, some of those documents are online and it's already been approved by council. The phase one, you've got in an agenda, so that's an easy one. That's the 1.5 million that was considered by council and approved, and it lists out the exact items that are in there. And that's the only thing that's been approved by council.
But right now,
other
that's
than the engineering.
no bathrooms and no electricity yet.
That's right.
So, and no turn lane. When are we adding those 3 items at which phase?
You're right, that's the phase two and the phase three. And so when we bring that back to council, just with the ideas, then that's when the feedback will happen. One of the things that we need to present to council, the next phase is the engineering. And so then the engineering, you would talk to them about, we talk with the engineer when we select a firm and determine which functions are next. So that's part of that Parks and Rec advisory direction and the other. So
Do we know how we're getting the water there yet? Eric, when
That's
I
part
asked
of
at
our-
Parks and Recs, it was still debating it.
well, that's in the budget, and we're working on that line now.
So it's going over a gorge or something, I've heard.
We have a plan to deliver the water over to the site.
So the plan's all the way there, because I asked at Parks and Recs meeting and it wasn't available yet. He
To have what?
didn't know how he's bringing the water. I was curious if we solved that problem.
I mean, yes or no? Yes. Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Short answer.
I mean, that's,
But we'll put it on the agenda as a discussion item instead of trying to discuss all that now. We're just discussing.
that's great.
Agenda items.
But yeah, we can, you want that for next meeting, or are you wanting it for the?
I mean,
April
Josh said it was
meeting?
easy to come up with what's in phase one and phase two.
Phase
feel like-
one's simple, because you've already
Yeah.
approved it and reviewed it 3 times. So that's a fact. I can pull that from the minutes right now. Phase two, we can look at it, and you're gonna look at that with an engineer though, too. That's the thing, so.
I'd just like it to be a little, another opportunity for the citizens to hear it, not just a meeting. A discussion item's fine. But I'd kind of like to hear something from Eric, so we could get some hard numbers on what's there. When we asked questions at the Parks and Recs meeting, we didn't have good
Mayor,
answers
And
necessarily.
if moved, I would prefer to be there at the discussion, obviously from this discussion, so we're not rehashing, but that's a request of me. I'd like to have it for the April meeting, so I'm present.
All right.
You do it when you want it.
Well, and not just engineering, but I would think we would want our Parks and Recreation Director to be part of it as well. Would you not?
For sure.
So we have to make sure that he's available. Anybody else? Yeah, I don't think I have any.
And some of those items you mentioned tonight, Mayor, the moving of potentially, again, Lake Shore, Shoreline Ranch, we believe those will come back. Nature's Point, you moved based on
yes.
that. That's gonna be coming back to council, so that's something that's gonna be a big presentation, action item, or discussion item, and potentially some of those have public hearings as well.
You think both of those are coming back on the next one, on March 19th, or?
Mayor, I believe Nature's Point may appear on the March 19th, But I also believe Nature's Point would have stayed on this agenda, and I believe Nature's Point may have been on the agenda before. So at this point, I don't have a clue,
Okay,
but I'm thinking we're gonna put it on there.
gotcha. Okay,
We could always pull it back off.
yeah, okay.
Yep, okay, I don't think of anything, I can't think of anything I have for the agenda that's not already scheduled. All right, where's my thing? Glasses, I've lost my glasses.
You put them away in your pocket.
Right, did I?
Got a chance,
Oh,
9:59.
I did, look at that. I'm trying to get out of here already.
9:59, oh, it's 10 o'clock.
Okay, future minutes. Do we have anything for executive session? Anybody needs to go to? All right, I hereby call the meeting adjourned at 10 PM.
Good night.
9:59, you had it. Them dang glasses.
I couldn't read, so I wanted to make sure, because I thought if I was gonna have to read,
That was funny.
Have a good one, have a good one.
beer time.